Good morning. It is Monday, October 21st, 2019. It is 52 degrees, getting up to a high of 67 today. Mostly sunny skies. The temperature will level off at around 64. Welcome to Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. It's a busy Monday, as you can figure. We'll get right to business. Again, you can listen live on RadioWestchester.com, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. They're all up and running. You can watch if you like. This is Radio Westchester. Let's take a look at some of the headlines. Fears mount as a West Point cadet remains missing, and he took his weapon. We'll tell you about that coming up. 2 were injured after a gas oven explosion in Rochester. A disturbing video was shared on Snapchat, may have led to a rape, they're not sure. And a memorial is held to honor Brink's robbery victims. The Giants lost. The Jets face, it's a Lions versus Christians thing. They face New England tonight. Let's get to some of those stories. Fears are mounting as a West Point cadet, I should say, was scheduled to participate in a military skills competition over the weekend, but never showed. He has been seen at the military academy, or has not been seen since Friday. His M4 style rifle is also now nowhere to be found, although officials do not believe that he took any magazines of ammunition with him. They also don't believe he poses a threat to the public, but he may be a danger to himself. This out of Lohud and News 12 today. In a statement, Academy Superintendent Lieutenant General Darrell Williams says, quote, "We will continue to search with all means possible on and off West Point. If you have information in any way, shape, or form, we give you this phone number. This man may be in need of help. 845-938-3333. That's 845-938-3333. 2 people were injured after a kitchen fire in Rochester. This in News 12 today. Officials said the flame sparked around 4 p.m. yesterday after some type of explosion within a gas oven inside a building at Westchester Avenue. Firefighters helped 2 people get out of the building. There is no word yet on the extent of their injuries. It is 6:15. A teen is facing charges after police say video of a rape was sent to several Brewster High School students on Snapchat. This in News 12 today. The 16-year-old is facing rape and sexual abuse charges because of his age. No details are being released. Parents in the district received an email from the school notifying them of the incident involving a video that had circulated in the community. The school had been notified about the situation through an anonymous alert system. Many remember this 35 years ago. If you don't, this will be news. This from News 12 today. 38 years ago, the Nyack police officers and an armed guard were killed in a robbery on Mountain View Avenue. This is known as the Brink's robbery. The victims included one Sergeant Edward Grady, Officer Waverly Chipper Brown, and Brink's guard Peter Page. Page was killed by robbers as they stole $1.6 million from the armored car outside of Nanuet National Bank. This in 1981. 2 officers were killed about an hour later at a throughway roadblock. Now, getaway driver Judith Clark was initially sentenced to 75 years in prison until Governor Cuomo commuted her sentence back in 2016, making her eligible for parole. She finally walked free this past spring. Her release sparked anger from many, including law enforcement, the community. Nonetheless, a memorial was held due to the loss of these peace officers. Well, the vaccination issue is not totally done with. It's the Amish now who are suing. An Amish family indeed has filed a lawsuit seeking to overturn New York state law banning religious exemptions to vaccinations for students. Good luck with that. And if you win, well, very disappointing would be our public officials and our courthouses. Lohud today. The case involves unvaccinated children attending Cranberry Marist School, a private Amish-run school in the rural Seneca County, about 60 miles southeast of Rochester. The lawsuit filed by Jonas Stolfus, who has 3 children at the school, is the latest to oppose the new law requiring students to be fully immunized to attend school and child care. Governor Andrew Cuomo approved the law in June amid measles outbreaks in mostly Orthodox Jewish communities in Rockland County and New York City. Medical exemptions to vaccinations are still permitted. Medical exemptions, folks, Amish folks. Stoltzfus contends the Amish fled religious persecution in Europe in the late 18th century, only to face it again today in the form of New York's ban on religious exemptions to vaccination. Folks, it's all good to have your religion, but when it flies in the face of science and logic, please go away. Go back to where you came from. Now, that's awful. We say that. I don't like when it's said about immigrants. But if you don't like a law that protects the rest of us, go away. Go on a spaceship. Don't come back. It's ridiculous. You know, we don't have an ASCAP license, and we're probably not going to buy one, but this is the time when usually I would play Stevie Wonder's Superstition. Maybe I'll sing it later. All righty, a 14-year-old is in critical but stable condition, and an 11-year-old is stable after they were struck by a car Friday evening as they crossed North Central in Greenburgh, North Central Avenue at 619. We like to tell you, since we go off the air Friday morning, what happened at the start of the weekend as well, if you're wondering why late Friday news. At about 7, almost 8 o'clock, the children were crossing North Central Avenue from east to west when the car traveling north on Central Avenue struck them. The 2 children are currently being treated still at Westchester Medical Center. Just an odd number of accidents on Friday. Here's another one, this out of Cortland from Lohud. First responders pulled a woman in her 30s from the Hudson River in Verplanck this late Friday. Police and fire departments rushed to Riverview Avenue after getting reports that a car plunged into the water. The woman was the only person in the car. It was submerged in about 10 feet of water. The driver was the only person, and she's not yet been identified. And in another incident, an 8-year-old boy died after a boat capsized in the Haverstraw Bay Friday afternoon. This in Lohub. Chief William Barbera of the Rockland County Sheriff's Office noted that the child is part of a Hasidic Jewish family and was on its way to Monsey for a private burial. The official cause of death is not known. The 8-year-old was one of 7 children and 1 adult on board when the boat unexpectedly flipped over about 100 yards from shore around 1:25 p.m. You all remember several years ago, Rob Astorino, it's not so long ago, 2-3 years ago, Rob Astorino was involved in what was known as the Rolex controversy. Well, federal prosecutors want light sentences for one witness. Jonah Reshnitz, who took the stand in 3 high-profile New York City trials, said he cut a check in 2013 for $5,700 to cover most of the cost of a Rolex Submariner watch for former county executive Rob Astorino. Reshnitz testified that he and his pal Jeremy Reichberg donated $15,000 to Astorino's reelection campaign, and that the executive helped them get volunteer county police chaplain positions, even though neither was a rabbi. So, Reshnitz testified that he and his pal donated the money and that the position got them those parking placards. Although the watch was seized by the federal government and will be sold, no charges were ever filed about the donations. The watch or chaplain appointments. Prosecutors said in a letter Wednesday to Judge Alvin Hellerstein, this is not a result of a determination that Rechnitz's information was not forthcoming. Anyway, that's the story. If you like your news pop, that is pop culture, well, we threw in a story for you. Jennifer Lopez, she's back in the Hudson Valley. The singer and actress filmed scenes for her film Hustlers in Rockland at the Palisade Center Mall, as well as at Waikiko Golf Club here in New Rochelle. Yesterday, crews were shooting scenes from Lopez's latest film, Marry Me, at Purchase College. This according to OnLocationVacation.com and our friends at Lohud. And as you probably know by now, Daniel Jones has still got his learning cap on. He had a tough day, got sacked 8 times. The Giants lost 27-21. He actually played pretty well, but he did turn over the ball 3 times. A lot of rookie mistakes. I'm sure they'll stay with him. Probably as well they should. And this is coming from Eli Manning's biggest fan. Time to go, Eli, or go to another team where they need a veteran towards to pull them through maybe the final steps towards the Super Bowl. At any rate, we move on as we continue with the news, this sports segment of it. It is 6:23. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. You can listen live on RadioWestchester.com, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. You're looking right at me. I know one of my bosses tells me, when I say one of my old bosses who taught me how to do the radio, make sure you give all the outlets. Okay, Periscope and Instagram. We continue. An ugly start to Sunday's matinee at Madison Square Garden threatened to send the New York Rangers into a tailspin, but their response may have provided a small moral victory because they played pretty well. But let's face it, they gave up 3 goals in the first period. They also then moved on to score 2 themselves. They've lost 4 in a row, the New York Rangers. And for those of you who saw all the nifty names and all the young players that they gathered, they tried to tell you many, many times, although they got carried away too, and they picked up the fellow from Columbus, Arturi Panarin, and they drafted Kakko. They're young. This is a rebuild. Be patient with them. All right, it's 6:24. Let's go to a full report on the weather. And the weather today is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit UHGC.com. It is, and let's double check the temperature. It's down to 48 right now. It'll get up to 67 today. No rain, few clouds right now. We will level off, though, at around 64. Again, mostly sunny skies for the rest of the day tonight. Mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 46. The wind will be light with just very light winds, actually, today. Tuesday, cloudy with rain. Again, late in the day tomorrow. The temperature will be 59. The wind will be light once again. Wednesday, lots of sunshine and breezy. We look forward to you. The high will be 62 degrees. The overnight low will be 43. Thursday, sunny. The high will be 64. This morning, we are supported again by our friends at United Hebrew Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Khan, and plug-in virtual reality. You can come here to our studios for virtual reality, or we'll take the experience out to you. And we move on now to regional news. Now, this is interesting. The plan to shut down Rikers Island and build new jailhouses doesn't hit close to home for the 4 city council members whose districts will host the lockups. None of them live near it. So it's not in their backyard. They're going to put these new prisons in yours. Thank you to the New York Post. And if you didn't hear this already, President Trump wanted to host next year's G7 summit at his Doral Golf property because he still considers himself as in the hospitality business. That's what acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney said Sunday. He was honestly surprised at the level of pushback. Maybe that's the problem. Mulvaney told that to Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. At the end of the day, he still considers himself to be in the hospitality business. At any rate, in the series of tweets, Trump blamed the media and Democrats' crazed and irrational hostility for the cancellation. You know, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again before we get into the more general stories. And this is, even, to be fair to the president, too. Why don't they just get rid of the emoluments clause? Why don't they just blow it up? Whether it's the infraction that they were, or at least the conflict of interest that they were trying to undercover from Joe Biden's son years ago, just to be fair, we're throwing that in, or the president's hotel business benefiting or not. I bet he probably lost money during his presidency. But at any rate, why even have an emoluments clause? Why? You wrote it into the Constitution, dear founding fathers, and no one knows what the hell it means. We can't get anybody to come on the air and truly explain it. They'll explain it in the abstract, but they won't really tell you what the offense is. So really, if these people had these 45,000 people, and that's what it would have drawn, would have come to the Doral, the president's business would have benefited. It's simple. It's that simple. So there are holes in the Constitution. By the way, a Constitution that this reporter believes needs to be rewritten. We should be careful doing it. It'll never happen because of the way our politics is set up, but it does need to happen. It is antique. Whether it's guns and people fight over that sentence in the Second Amendment about it to form a militia, blah, 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 blah. No one knows what it means. Let's write clearer. Well, no, don't write clearer language, because now we could swing back to my favorite target, the racist. Yes, I called him a racist, the commissioner, or rather the superintendent or the chancellor, whatever they call him down in New York, Carranza, of schools. Again, if you look at his list of things that make you a white supremacist, and again, that word supremacist is what I take issue with. You want to talk about white privilege, we're here. But if you have an adherence, a belief in the written word and too strong a commitment, you are a white supremacist. So how are we going to write any laws without being accused of being a white supremacist? Please, Mayor de Blasio, well, look who we're asking. We got to get rid of this guy before he destroys our children. All right, let's go. We flip back and forth. This is a little more lighthearted. You know, this movie came out. Everybody's talking about it. Al Pacino, he plays Jimmy Hoffa in this lengthy 3.5-hour movie, The Irishman. And Cindy Adams wrote today, plays the late union leader Jimmy Hoffa in The Irishman. And Al says, today's all-access lifestyle with computer ability to acquire every kind of information is great for actors. I saw all kinds of stuff. And, of course, he's talking about preparing for Jimmy Hoffa. And now I love Al Pacino, all the people in this movie, Pesci, Bob De Niro. But I think there are two movies that were done on HBO that were definitive. And I'm sure The Irishman is going to be good because it's not just about Hoffa. Okay. But the movie Hoffa that was done on HBO, starring Jack Nicholson, was as good as any TV movie has ever been. Also, the best movie, if you like your gangster flicks. In fact, there's no comparison. Gotti. Now, the one, and again, I like the actors. I've always been a fan. How could you grow up in Brooklyn and not be a fan of John Travolta? But the new Gotti movie, because it was too entwined with the people about which it was written, stunk. It was horrible. It was bad acting, bad storyline. It was almost like a news story written by an 8-year-old. But the best one was with Armand Assante, and it's called Gotti. Go rent it. That was really, really well done. And I think he won a Golden Globe for it. But because it was 20 years old and it was on VHS, I'm sure it's out on DVD now. But both terrific movies, both much better than the big screen versions that came out years later. Let's see. Oh, it is 48 degrees. It is 6:31. Let's take a look at the lineup for today. Coming up at first guest of the day will be Mike Duffy. We have a lot to talk about with him. We've got a couple of stories we put aside. In fact, just the other day, some guy goes in, and I shouldn't say put it that way. I've got the story here. I'll get to it. He beats up a police officer. Okay? Beats him up. He was released on his own recognizance without bail. Good grief. And I used to be, well, I don't know how liberal I am anymore. I don't know that I can even be defined anymore. But we cannot have that. And I don't care how tough his background was, what color he was, if the cop was a white supremacist because of the color of his skin. You can't be going home after you beat up a cop. Sorry. What the hell is going on? George Latimer is with us at 7:35. We'll get the latest on what's going on in the county with him. Noam Bramson, both as a guest and as a candidate. He's running once again for re-election. He's running against Brandon Conroy, who we had with us last week. Ron Belmont joins us at 8:50. Sean Patterson Howard at 9 o'clock. Remember now, it is what my good friend used to call, and who was it that did this? Oh, we know who he is, Lou from New Rochelle, one of my old callers, who we know is forbidden. We know to call me for sure, but he used to call it the silly season, and right, he did. Now, some of the stories that I mentioned to you, and I want to get to them right now as we pass through 6:33 and open up the telephones. 914-222-3141, 222-3141. We talked a little while ago about, once again, we have a religious group saying, you must preserve our religious freedom. Religious freedom doesn't give you the right, and I'm sick of doing this. 15 years, and of course, my tiny voice makes no difference. We have people much more intelligent and with greater gravitas and power than any radio host will ever have. But religious people have to stop imposing their will on others. It includes the evangelical Christians, the Hasidic Jews, the Mormon, whoever it is. And this is with all due respect to religion. You're entitled to it. The law protects it. You get to practice your religion until it imposes on the law, until it contradicts the law. This is not the Middle East. This is a country founded to keep religion separate. Now, I know it's going to come as a shock, but so far as we know, other than the 10 commandments, which were well marketed, God hasn't interfered with the plan. I mean, of course, you have the whole experience of Christ and his sacrifice, and those are all wonderful things, And they're all about forgiveness and love, wonderful things. But you don't have the right to say, well, my religion says that we must take very careful care of a cow or a bug with 3 legs or a fly with 1 wing. Now, when I talk like this, of course, none of them say that. Well, they say things that are equivalent. Because here we have, now the aim is saying that we got to let their kids go to school even if they're not vaccinated. No, they do not. Not here in this country. Now, this is a really good piece that was in the Daily News over the weekend apropos of this. And let me just put up a little sound here so I can hear the phone when it rings. When Pastor Robert Jeffries, a member of President Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board in the White House Faith Initiative, the White House shouldn't be doing faith initiatives, recently dismissed climate activist Greta Thunberg by saying that rainbows, now I didn't say this, okay? I didn't write this. That rainbows are evidence that the polar ice caps aren't melting. This writer, Tora Bondrager, her heart broke. Freedom of religion and freedom of speech allow people to believe and say what they want in this country. That's wonderful. But she says, I know, and I said that's wonderful, from firsthand experience that religiously driven myths reinforced by leaders can harm children's lives and thwart their potential. And she goes on to say, like many Christian children, my Amish upbringing instilled in me the belief that Jesus' return would be preceded by devastating conditions, including floods, earthquakes, droughts, tornadoes, crop failures, and fires. Hey, don't forget, while you're at it, Gog and Magog, the book of Revelation. I'm going to make fun of that until they cart me to the grave. You know, bugs are coming down, 3-headed dragons and stuff. The only part I like is the harlot to seduce me. At any rate, this is about how she escaped the Amish, if you will, oppression. When I escaped my community in Michigan in the middle of the night at age 15, I arrived in mainstream society laden with fears that had been reinforced through a limited Amish education. Now, that's a big deal. We have it here in New York where in certain religious sects, there's a minimum of the education you're supposed to get and a maximum of religious education. And she says, for example, in New York City, now we've been covering it on this show and its various iterations for the last 6-7 years extensively. In New York City, Mayor de Blasio has failed forcefully to stand up to ultra-Orthodox yeshivas to ensure that their schools provide Hasidic children with state-mandated secular education. Most recently, 30 members of the New York City Council signed a letter spearheaded by council members Chaim Dush and Deutsch, and Kalman Yeager in opposition to regulations proposed by the state education department to provide the bare minimum. Now, this is no secret. We get politicians on and we ask them about this. Oh, Bob, we can't do that because Hasidim, the assemblymen and women, and well, probably no women in Hasidim, but the assembly people and the state senate, they vote as a block. No, we can't. No, you shouldn't be able to vote as a block to break the law unless you change the legislation. Anyway. All right, here's the other thing, and I'm going to be talking with with Mike Duffy, just so you'll know enough to tune in come 7:20. It is now 6:38. 2 Brooklyn police officers were attacked while trying to arrest a man for drinking in public, with the suspect and a bystander throwing several punches at cops and a brutal beatdown caught on camera. This in the Daily News. This isn't in some right-wing rag. The video recorded Tuesday shows the cops being blindsided from behind as they tried to corral a man on the Bedford-Stuyvesant sidewalk. The officers were on patrol when they spotted Brian Williams drinking. Blah, blah, blah. As they approached, Williams, 29, showed in the video wearing a multicolored coat. You can't see that. He took a wild swing at one of the officers, sparking a fight. The cops were trying to handcuff Williams when another man wearing a blue hat and a blue coat jumped into the melee from behind. Cops later identified the second man as 37-year-old Darnell Brown. During the struggle, the two men swiped an NYPD-issued cell phone from one of the officers, a department spokeswoman said. Now, let's move on. This is what we had. Police charged Williams with robbery, assaulting a police officer, and resisting arrest. He was given a violation for drinking in public. A judge ordered him released without bail at his arraignment. Brown was also charged with robbery and assault on a police officer and obstructing government administration. His arraignment was pending Friday. Tuesday's brawl is the latest example of cops caught on camera being targeted. It's just unbelievable. You know, and I get all the other issues that people have with color and with police and native bias, if you will. I understand the concerns about that, but beating up officers and then just being released on your own recognizance is something that's very, very hard to believe. It is 6:40. You're listening to Radio Westchester. Now, if you want to join the conversation, you can. 914-222-3141, 222-3141. Most of you are familiar, okay, with the Johnson & Johnson lawsuit where they have been something about talcum powder and it being cancerous. Well, they lost the suit. They're appealing. It does seem like I think they'll win their appeal, or I used to think that. But now a news story came out. Johnson & Johnson, which has spent years insisting that its baby powder is safe, recalled 33,000 bottles of the product on Friday after the Food and Drug Administration discovered evidence of asbestos, a known carcinogen, in one of the bottles. The recall, the first time Johnson & Johnson has pulled baby powder from store shelves over asbestos concerns, could undercut its defense against a swarm of allegations that its talc-based products cause cancer. It comes as the company, which reaches into the lives of millions through brands such as Tylenol, Band-Aid, and Rogaine, not me, God gave me a lot of hair, and reported nearly an $82 billion in sales last year. They're entangled in numerous legal battles over the safety of their product. How do you get asbestos in the powder? By the way, there was another study this morning. We're still looking into it. We got some of it from our friends at News Radio 880, but evidently they did some tests and like a third of all baby food has all kinds of stuff in it. So how is this happening? Where's this stuff being made? Whatever happened to Oh, no, we don't like regulations. Let's do away with all the regulations. They stifle business. Go ahead and put whatever you want in the baby powder. Go ahead and put whatever you want in the baby food. Or go ahead and put so much sugar in your next donut that you go into diabetic shock. But don't put any regulations to stop it. Ease off, FDA. All right, this is going to disappoint some of you, may even result in a phone call. Guess what investigation ended? You got to go to the small pages of the newspapers to find this one. A years-long State Department, you recall the president and the former attorney general wanted to look into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's private email servers, lock her up, found that while the use of the system for official business increased the risk of compromising classified information, there was no systematic or deliberate mishandling of classified information. The inquiry, started more than 3 years ago, found that 38 current or former State Department officials were culpable of violating security procedures in a review of about 33,000 individual emails sent to or from the server that Mrs. Clinton turned over to investigate. It's ridiculous that she had a private server. The 9-page unclassified report completed last month and shared with Congress this week appears to bookend a controversy that dogged Mrs. Clinton and her 2016 presidential campaign against Donald Trump. Mrs. Clinton blamed the FBI's handling of the inquiry for crippling her campaign after James Comey, then the Bureau's director, reopened his investigation into the server days before the general election after initially declining to bring charges. Here's a quote. While there were some instances of classified information being inappropriately introduced into an unclassified system in furtherance of expedience, the report said, quote, and here's the coup de grace. By and large, the individuals interviewed were aware of security policies and did their best to implement them in their operations, and it concluded there was no persuasive evidence of systematic, deliberate mishandling of classified information. So now that you can't lock her up for that, you certainly have enough reasons to lock up the president, maybe. Where are the Democrats? Where is their courage? Where is their chutzpah? Where's their testosterone? Where are the two little items that belong in the mail sack? What the heck? How come we're not screaming from the rooftops, lock him up? Well, because he hasn't been convicted of anything, and we shouldn't do that. No, really, we shouldn't. But one group of idiots sometimes could bring rise to another group of idiots. Why can't we get some idiots on the left saying, lock him up? You're listening to Radio Westchester. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll share an update with the weather on you. And when we come back, this whole business of Brexit is causing interesting problems. Hey, man, what do I care about Brexit? Well, you should care because it affects the economy. It affects how much you pay for everyday goods. It affects our NATO. It affects our relationships with other countries and our alliances. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about it, because what this could lead to, it could literally lead to parts. Now, remember, the United Kingdom is a group of other countries that have agreed to be part of the United Kingdom. But Scotland, Wales, and that other headache for so many people, Northern Ireland. Again, that's another one, too. While it is part of the UK, it's based on religion. God, my God is bigger than your God. He'll beat your God up. We'll be back in just a few moments. You're listening to Radio Westchester, Mornings with Bob Marrone. We'll be back. That wasn't a very long break. If you'd like to join the conversation, call us at 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141. Let's take a look at the weather this morning. It is 48 degrees, going to get up to 67 today, which is pretty comfortable. No precip, few clouds, only 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, mostly sunny skies today. And did someone know? That person did not call me, or I would have known. Mostly cloudy. The temperature that's tonight, mostly cloudy. The temperature will level out at about 46. Nice sleeping weather, light winds. Also light winds tomorrow, as it will be cloudy, though with rain late in the day. The temperature leveling off there at about 59. Now Wednesday, lots of sunshine and breezy. The high will be 62. The overnight low 43. Moving into Thursday, and we'll cut it off there. Otherwise, we're doing a Friday show. Sunny. The high will be 64 degrees. The overnight low will be 47. Radio Westchester is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. We're also supported this morning by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. You can call us at 914-727-2726 and come in and experience it here, or we'll take the reality to you. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone on Radio Westchester. We are the station at the station. You should stop by the next time you're on your way to the train. Come right in. Well, yeah, we will put you on the air if you have something to say and you have something to ask about. You know, we encourage people to call. And more we'll be doing a lot about that. We did a lot of work this weekend, enough to drive me out of my mind, because as a host, there was a period where I came into the studio. I guess it was about 7 or 8 o'clock on Saturday. And the geniuses were hard at work. And this beautiful studio, now you can't see it. I'm looking around. You can, one day I'll just take the camera and I was just looking at the back of myself. I'll take this camera that you're looking at me on and show you. It's really incredible what they built. It's a wonderful thing. But when they rework it, when they change it, this room, this studio here at the radio station, there was a big ball of wires in the middle. It looked like black spaghetti, except without the sauce. And the meatballs, if you will, were the different computers and microphones. And there's a lot of computers. There's no less than 7 in here. And this radio board, which you sort of can see here, and some other technology. Well, anyway, they did a wonderful job. They really did. After I wanted to drink, because if you're the person that does it, every time they add a new bell and whistle, you have to learn it. Every time they add a new computer, you have to figure out how to use it. Every time that they change something, we even have a new phone. But what's good is, and we can't tell you all the little secrets, but we now have the ability to take 2-3 calls at a time. We have the ability to screen calls. We have the ability to give now something I haven't had at the last 2 stations I worked at, a true VIP line. So that if you're a caller and we have a VIP on and you want to join the conversation, it's not going to affect anything. We can put you all on the air together. So a lot of that was done. Also, the ability to start podcasting in a way where we put the podcast up on our website, radiowestchester.com. And what we're going to do is this, as we continue to grow. The morning show, and again, we do all news in the 6 o'clock hour. We're looking at when really to start the show. I think that if you looked at all the great radio stations, the ones with personality-driven, and when I say personality-driven, they're not just 100% news. We do that in 6 o'clock hour. We're asking you for your feedback because we've noticed when I used to listen to Imus just about every day, sometimes he wouldn't go on the air till 6:20, but you'd hear music or an old cut or something from yesterday. We're thinking, now we're on till 10 every day. We're thinking of not starting till 6:30. Maybe have a little less news, but we also think it's kind of nice that you get a chance if you want. And right now, this is the operative plan. Is that at 6 o'clock from 6 through 7, and we'll have more calls as we go forward, and people know we're here and know it's easy to get us. I mean, we could generate them. People do it all the time. You'd be shocked at how many calls that you hear in a radio station are because you called them and then they called you back. It's planned, a lot of it. Not all of it. In fact, not most of it, but sometimes that's what you do when you start up. We're not doing that, at least not yet. I think it's kind of cool to be able to know that from 6 to 7, or 6:15 to 7, really, you're going to get all the local news, all the regional news, and national news that everybody's talking about. And we're really trying to do that for you to sort of lay the groundwork, because at 6 to 7, it's, you're running around, you're getting dressed, you're in the shower. But we'll be taking lots of recommendations, and those recommendations and those ideas can be sent to us at bob@radiowestchester.com. That's bob@radiowestchester.com. Now, I mentioned before we went to break that we talk a little bit about Brexit. And I'm going to try and keep it as simple as I can. And it's not that listeners to this program aren't intelligent enough to figure it out. You may already know this already. It's just that there are a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. But basically, the UK, the people at the UK, they bought, as did I at the time, having spent a great deal of time in the UK, it's a different mindset than the rest of Europe. They have great pride in being alone on that island and being their own masters. And it was with that in my heart that I was in favor of Brexit. But just like a lot of people who live there and who obviously care more about their country, I realized that it probably was a mistake for them. And what you have are certain elements within, and when I say elements, I mean virtual states. I mean, Scotland is another country. It's very ill-defined. It's part of the European Union. They've always considered themselves separate from England, as do the Welsh and Wales, separate from England. England being one original country from which it all sprang. They were all there, but they fought like mad for years. I mean, remember the movie Braveheart? At any rate, if the UK goes to Brexit, the UK, the United Kingdom, Scotland may not want to go. The people in Northern Ireland don't want to go for lots of reasons, including that after decades and decades of war with the rest of Ireland, they finally have an open border. They don't have to check passports. They can get jobs in each country. They can do trade in each country. So what may happen as a result, an unintended consequence of the UK, is that the UK could well break up. So that you wouldn't have. Now, this is in the extreme. Usually these things get worked out, particularly the border issue. The border issue in Northern Ireland and the main Ireland, the mainland, different country, more Catholic than the rest, or rather Northern Ireland. These are big deals. If they leave without some sort of a special deal, it may break up the United Kingdom. And when 5 years from now or 2 years from now, when people talk about the UK, they won't say the UK anymore. They'll just have to say England. And then who's to say that England should get any more press than Scotland? Or who's to say that Scotland should get any more press than Wales? Although I don't think there's not a lot of talk about Wales leaving. But nonetheless, they have a lot of problems. And they're kind of coming, a lot of the countries in Europe that have taken this rightward tilt, and I don't count Asia in it yet. I don't count Erdogan and Turkey. A lot of people who saw, or a lot of governments that took this rightward tilt, as we did, with some understanding, most of it in Europe driven by massive immigration due to the wars in the Middle East, they're starting to go back to the middle. And in the case of Brexit, we're seeing it now. The smart money says that if they did another referendum, they would vote not to go. But they do have a kind of right-wing guy in there now, and not that there's anything wrong with the right. It's center-right that we love, not the far right or the far left. All righty, so that's what's going on in the UK. Keep your eye on that. That could be very interesting. And particularly keep your eye on Northern Ireland and the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, the separate country. Now, let's get to what's going on in Syria. There's no other way to put it. And finally, I read something over the weekend that made it a little simpler for us. In northern Syria, and let's not talk about the army just yet, there are 300,000 ethnic Kurds who live there. Their homes are there. Their businesses are there. They inhabit that part of Syria. Similarly, Kurds inhabit parts of northern Iraq and northern Iran. And I think parts of Turkey. But I think that captures it for now. It'll keep it nice and simple. You've got 3 countries, and across the top, like my fingertips, is what would be Kurdistan if it was a country. It's an ethnic group. Now, at the end of World War I, they were promised their own country. And there's a great book that I would recommend to anyone who cares about this history called The Peace to End All Peace, How They Carved Up the World After World War I. Or our regular guest, Harlan Ullman, who will be with us, let me see, Wednesday. He wrote a book called A Handful of Bullets, which also deals with this. And at any rate, they didn't get their country. They were stabbed in the back, well, first of many, many times. But nonetheless, there they are. Now, what Erdogan wants to do, and the rhetoric that comes out of him, and to some extent the White House, is that he wants to push back this so-called terrorist group. Actually, they're the army that did 2 things. I mean, there may be terrorists among them. I'm not, we'll ask Harlan Ullman about it Wednesday. But he wants to take, there are some 3.5 million. He does have a problem. I mean, let's you always got to look at the other guy's situation. Because of the now 6-7 year long civil war in Syria, he has 3 million Syrian refugees. And he'd really like to send them back. So his idea is, and that's why it's called ethnic cleansing, you've had these 300,000 Kurds that are in northern Syria, and they've been there for decades or for lifetimes. He wants to force them out and to put in Syrians who came from all over Syria, not that part. In other words, he's not sending them home. He's chasing out. Sound familiar in this world? Does it sound like what's going on in the Balkans? It's called ethnic cleansing. Get rid of the Kurds. And getting rid of them would be simply because they're Kurds. It's ethnic and it's religious. And you're not reading a lot about that unless you have the time to sit and read all the long stuff or read the right magazines or do your research. But who really has the time to do that? That's my job, and I share it with you. He needs to be called out on this. Now, and it's up, even if Syria should say they don't want the Kurds there, and certainly Syria, Iraq, and Iran, none of those countries have a good record in terms of treating the Kurds well, which is why they have a very democratic society, the Kurds. And it's a society that in some cases and in their local magistrates and in their local governments, they actually have governments made up of men and women at the head sharing equal power. They have women's rights. They are democratic. They're good fighters. All around pretty decent folks. They don't have their own country. Now, I'm not here to pine for their country. That's a political matter. They'll never get one living where they live. Okay, they just won't, probably. But they don't deserve to be chased out of where they live. They have nowhere to go. It's one of the reasons that this show that we're working on regarding the evolution of the Holocaust and what went on in Europe. Imagine being a people, as the Jews were, and I make this analogy willingly and openly. They had nowhere to go. They thought they did. They were integrated into Germany. They got thrown. They were really integrated into Germany. They were in various. They were in France. They were in England. They were thrown out of those countries too at various times in history. They were in Austria. They were in Norway and Sweden and the Netherlands, and some of these countries, though not a lot, protected them when the Holocaust was evolving and the whole effort to cleanse Europe of Jews. They had nowhere to go, hence Israel and the United States, which has worked out. But even the United States didn't take them in during the height of these problems. My point is, to force anybody out of a country because of their ethnicity is a crime against humanity, and that's what Erdogan is doing, and that's what you're not reading enough about in the press. Anyway, it's time to move forward. It is 7:02. We will be back with just the local news, the headlines of the local news, some phone calls, and then we'll talk with our first guest of the day, Mike Duffy. He's a defense attorney, and as well, he has been a detective. He was the leader or the head of the investigations unit for the DA's office here in Westchester. 7:03. The temperature is still 48. We got to move that because I'm going to get a twisted neck. I mean, they reorganized the studio. They put my news monitor up there, so my neck is twisted, but I am getting there. This is the one and only Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. You can capture all of this when we start podcasting the shows, and that will begin tonight and then on in perpetuity, hopefully, on Radio Westchester. That's radiowestchester.com. That is the website. Stay right there. I got to hit this little music button. You don't want to play, huh? All right. Why not? Yeah, I gave the computer the finger. It happens. It is 7 o'clock. Actually, it's 7:04 right now. 48 degrees. It's going to get up to 67 today. A beautiful day ahead. Few clouds, mostly sunny. The temperature is going to level off at 64. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. On this, it is Monday, October 21st, 2019. Now, I don't know about you, but it feels like we just got through celebrating Christmas and New Year's, and I already see Christmas stuff in the stores. It's frightening. It's like do you realize they're rushing us to our deaths? I don't want to rush, particularly that I'm not 40 years old anymore. All right, let's take a look at some of the headlines. Fears mount as West Point cadet remains missing with his weapon. 2 were injured after a gas oven explosion in Portchester. A disturbing video shared on Snapchat led to the rape of a young woman. And a memorial was held to honor those Brinks robbery victims. That's right, back in 1981. And we got another religious group. Oh no, it's God wants us not to be vaccinated so we can kill everybody else. But it's okay because God said so. Ridiculous. Sorry, that's how I feel about it. As Mr. McCullen, whatever his name is, McClaney said about the president, get over it. All right, the Giants lost, the Rangers lost, all seems lost, although basketball is getting started soon. We know the Knicks will lose. Maybe the Nets will win. I'm not really sure. Stay right there. We're going to cover those news stories as we enter the 7 o'clock hour. But we do want to share with you these stories, so let me get to it. And I put them in the wrong stack. You know how that is. All right. This is interesting because you don't hear these kinds of stories coming out of West Point. The quality of people, and it's not to say that they don't have their own problems or mental illness, whatever the case may be, but usually the vetting of these cadets, but they are human beings. And so here's the story. Fears are mounting, and this in News 12 today, as a West Point cadet remains missing with his weapon. The military academy says the cadet was scheduled to participate in a military skills competition over the weekend, but never showed. He has not been seen at the military academy since Friday evening. His M4 style rifle is also nowhere to be found. Officials do not believe he took any magazines or ammunition with him. Authorities don't believe he possesses a threat to the public, but he may be a danger to himself, which tells us he may have some kind of depression, and my heart aches for this guy. Anyone with information is urged to call the military police. I will give you their number. Get a pencil out, something, particularly if you live up in the area, you may be able to help. 845-938-3333. That's 845-938-3333. It is 707. This out of Portchester and also in News 12. Officials say the flames sparked around 4 p.m. 2 people were hurt after a kitchen fire there. This happened yesterday after some type of explosion within the oven. Firefighters helped 2 people get out of the building. I think my daughter cooked. My beloved daughter doesn't cook very well. Her other half cooks a little bit, but I hope you're not watching. Anyway, firefighters helped 2 people get out of the building. There is no word yet on the extent of their injuries. This in News 12 as well. A teen is facing charges after police say video of a rape was sent to several Brewster High School students on Snapchat. Can you believe that? A 16-year-old is facing rape and sexual abuse charges because of his age. No details are being released about the student at this time. Parents in the district received an email from the school notifying them of the incident involving the video that had circulated in the community. The school has been notified about the situation, or had been, through an anonymous alert system. Some parents say their children are having a hard time after viewing the video. I just can't believe it myself, and this is what some parents said. She said she's just sickened by it. She's not doing well. I mean, she's a little bit better now, but she's had a hard time dealing with it. That, of course, the victim. Unbelievable, or not. There's a piece, one of the Jersey papers yesterday did 3 full, and we're not talking about a tabloid. We're talking about a full, one of the Gwinnett papers. They actually wrote a very interesting story, and I'm laughing because, the paper gets thinner and thinner and thinner. Well, they wrote a huge story about teen suicide. In Mercer County alone, they had 7 suicides last month. Something's wrong. And this whole business, and that sounds like a cheap way to put it, not very articulate on my part. This whole concern we all have for teen suicide, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And they talked a great deal about, this piece did, about how you can't get a shrink if you want one. If your child is your teenage child, and this is right here in Westchester, New Jersey, it just happened to be a New Jersey-based story. But we all know that you can't get a shrink for sometimes 8 to 12 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks. And even then, if you can, and I'm talking about a shrink, a psychiatrist, someone who could also put you in a hospital or get you medication. If a person's suicidal, you got to get them to the emergency room, and even then they may not find a bed for them. We do not have the resources. Most psychiatrists will not even take your insurance. That is, even if they have time and they can take you, and it's going to be $300, $400, $600 a session if you do. Our kids are dying, and the stuff we worry about when our kids are dying is very misplaced often. Not always, but often. All right, let's get to another story. A memorial was held in Nyack to honor the victims of the Brinks robbery. 38 years ago, this is in News 12 again, by the way. 38 years ago, 2 Nyack police officers and an armed guard were killed in the robbery on Mountain View Avenue, well known for people from the Valley. The victims included one Sergeant Edward Grady, Officer Waverly Chipper Brown, and Brinks guard Peter Page. May they rest in peace. Page was killed by robbers as they stole $1.6 million from the armored car outside of the Nanuet National Bank. This happened on October 20th. Obviously, yesterday was the anniversary. 1981, the 2 officers were killed about an hour later at a throughway roadblock. Now, what's been recent in the news, getaway driver Judith Clark was initially sentenced to 75 years in prison until Governor Andrew Cuomo commuted her sentence in 2016. Making her eligible for parole. She finally walked free this past spring. And my favorite story, and when I say favorite, only because it raises my ire. An Amos family has filed a lawsuit seeking to overturn New York state law banning religious exemptions to vaccinations for students. It is 7/12, by the way. If I do one more of these stories, I'm going to tie the microphone cord around my neck. The case involves unvaccinated children attending Cranberry Marsh School, a private Amish-run school in the Seneca County. It's upstate, about 60 miles southeast of Rochester. And what a weak case. The lawsuit filed by Jonas Stolzfoots, who has 3 children at school, is the latest to oppose the new law requiring students to be fully immunized to attend schools and childcare. Stolzfoots contends the Amish fled religious persecution in Europe in the late 18th century, only to face it again today in the form of New York's ban. Well, tough tiddlies. Really? You're going to make my kids sick because of your voodoo. You're going to make my grandchildren sick because you believe in unproven things. It's okay to have your faith. We will defend you to the death, and that includes me personally, if you wish to practice your religion so long as it doesn't hurt me, mine, or any other American, or cause injury to any other American, or break our laws. And I know maybe you say, oh, we have more religious clout like the Hasids do in New York. Well, no, even the Hasidic community in New York has had to follow suit. And so too should you. We have an issue in the country that's, you'd think, and look, I'm not an atheist, and I get asked this all the time. I'm not an atheist. I don't know how all this came about, but I know there's a fundamental goodness and decency and love, the Judeo-Christian ethic, and it could be in every other religion. I don't know them as well as I do. I got a bookshelf full of books about the religions, and they all deal with peace of mind and love and et cetera. Although a lot of them also have fire and brimstone. You know, according to many religions, God is an angry pit bull suffering from a hangover. I'll smite you. Please, okay? You're entitled to your religion. That's what America's about. But it does not belong in the public square. Sorry, evangelical Christians. Sorry. But it's just so. But you know what? I people I love. My mom when she was alive. I have some dear friends who are very religious. In fact, we're going to be bringing Vince back. He found God. And I'm happy for him. But just don't let your religion get in the way of this great experiment that is America. That's all I ask. But what do we do? And going back to these people that I love, I don't want to take that away from anybody. All of us, anxiety levels in this world. In fact, one of the problems I think with the anxiety that our children have and the anxiety that we as adults have is the more science we see, the more cruelty we see, the more things done, whether it's evangelical Christians having a theme park with dinosaurs in it to ride, whether it's what goes on in the Middle East, whether it's the Amish or the Hasidic Jewish community wanting a religious exemption. That's silly, at least to my view. More and more we begin to realize, well, you know, I believe in God, but all these rules that were laid down, they no longer make sense. Now, again, over time, we'll look back on it the same way we do now on bleeding as a cure, on the Christians who were famous for burning people at the stake, my religion, the Catholics. We like to do that. We like to boil the Protestants like eggs in the morning. They like to take our priests, cut them open, bleed them into a tub, and then drown their children. That's when they still were allowed to have sex. That's another wacko thing the Catholic Church does. Oh, no, God, you can't have sex. Heaven forbid. And you know what that did for them. And forget women. Women, you should be angrier every day. My inner feminist, my church, and I call it my church. I'm a Catholic. But my church has made you second-class citizens since time immemorial. In fact, if you're not a virgin, you're not the best. You start, let's assume that no Catholic woman has sex until she's married. Well, then you still start your life as a wonderful mother, as a sacred giver of life, with one moral arm tied behind your back because you are not the blessed ever virgin. Where'd they come up with that? So, people are listening to this, say, I hate God. No, I don't. But I don't want to take it away from you either, because if that's your drug of choice, or if that is your certain pillar that you rest on, well, I have no right to do that. I can just give you my opinion. And if it takes away your comfort, maybe you have more doubts than you thought you did. All right, at 7:17, we're going to get ready for Michael Duffy. Let's take a look at the weather one more time. And the weather this morning is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. We're also supported this morning by Aging Issues Management, Pena and Con Law Firm, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. You can come here to have that experience, or we can bring a whole new reality to you. Give us a buzz at 914-727-2726. That's 914-272-7226. 48. I got the wrong thing. Still 48. I'm going to get up to 67 today. We've got the sun coming up. We expect a few clouds, mostly sunny skies. The temperature will be 64 degrees as we get ready for Mike Duffy. Now, just to, I don't know if I say back off is the right word. No one that I know of benefited as much as I have from a good Catholic education. And the Catholic school I went to, high school, was the best, the absolute best. Although they had to sell it. They did have to sell it because of the sex scandal. They needed to sell it and get money because it's in a wonderful neighborhood that gentrified in Park Slope, Bishop Ford. God bless the brothers there, at least half of whom were gay by the information I got. And I don't care about that. I'm just saying that to paint the tapestry for you, that a church that eschews gay people had wonderful work done by many men who were gay. So I don't know how they reconcile that. That's up to the leaders of the church. Oh, Bob, don't talk about that. Well, they were great. It was a great school. St. John's University was a great place. So I benefited from it, and I don't like throwing them under the bus. But that is life, isn't it? Isn't that paradox? You know, someone once said that art or good literature, good art, good painting, even stand-up humor, which people now throw under the bus because they don't get art, is all about paradox and irony and, you know, what do you do when the most miserable person you know did the most wonderful thing, or a person who does wonderful things does something horrible? It's just the way the world is. Everybody's a paradox. That's the human condition. That's the thing that has kept me tied to deity, or tied at least to Christ, which is that the whole message is that even if God became man, he'd screw up a little bit. He'd give up as Christ did on the cross. So much from our religious waxing. We get ready for Mr. Duffy. Now, we gave him his new time, and I expect we'll hear from him momentarily. Thank you. All right, I got some updates here. Let's see what else we have in the news, Hopper, while we wait for our guests. We did the email server. Lock her up. Okay. What are we? Oh, yes, Elijah Cummings. A guy wrote in to the paper, one of the papers the other day, about Elijah Cummings. And another thing, these are now, as we move on, sort of, well, to me, were uplifting stories. Now, let me do this one first. CC Sabathia. And this story came out before the Giants lost. And God, I've always said, you know, paying a guy $15 million or $20 million to throw 100 miles an hour. Don't lose on a slider. But anyway, I'm not going to criticize. It's hard. I'm not criticizing the pitcher, but it's tough. It's tough you lose the pennant on one pitch. But it's happened before. Bobby Thompson, and a man who's been on this show several times, passed away since, Ralph Brinker. What a great guy, by the way. Anyway, CC Sabathia didn't go to write the Dream's final chapter to his likely Hall of Fame career. Didn't get to write it. Instead, his final moments, he's glad that's the way it ended. He left it all on the field. In throwing his last pitch, he separated his shoulder. He broke, well, it's actually a tendon. People sometimes say break a bone, but the tendons that tie it all together. It's a very common hockey injury. He separated his shoulder. And so, he walks off the field at 39 years of age with an arthritic knee. What a way to end it. You know, I mean, in the thought of leaving it on the field, he had nothing left to give him. His arm shot now. Done. Good for you, CC Sabathia. Thanks for the memories, and maybe later on we'll open up the phones and talk about whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he's just under that, frankly. And the other issue I wanted to share with you is this letter that a man by the name of Oren Spiegel wrote in the newspaper about Elijah Cummings. Decent, honorable, dedicated, hardworking, patriotic, passionate, and compassionate, a man of the people, a tireless and powerful fighter for the downtrodden and for those who have suffered discrimination, a statesman. These are the words that properly characterize the late Elijah Cummings, whose sudden and untimely passing has shocked and saddened those of us who believe in traditional American values. Now, this is what you got to remember about this legislator. He is the, for those of you who don't know, African-American legislator who led the Investigations Committee, who also was from Baltimore and lived among his constituents. Cummings could have used his prominent position to amass vast wealth, and he could have lived a lavish lifestyle in a posh, gated community. He eschewed such trappings of power, instead choosing to live among his constituents in the inner city of his beloved Baltimore. Cummings' dogged pursuit of justice and his willingness to call out wrongdoing earned him the enmity of the president, a badge of honor, he says. Let the nation come together for at least a brief moment to mourn the passage of a giant of the legislative branch. One of the reasons why this letter is so nice is that a lot of people think that the civil rights movement in some ways becomes anti-American because of our history of slavery and because of our history of taking the country from the Indians. But he has often talked about in the Senate why it was so important to be a patriot and all the strides made by African Americans and others in this country, and that the way our system is set up is to improve, is for progress. So Elijah Cummings, only 68 years old, what can we say other than Godspeed? We're going to take a break and sort out a couple of housekeeping issues. You're listening to Radio Westchester. We're available constantly, and we'll soon be 24 hours a day on RadioWestchester.com. Listen also for our podcasts. 7:25, welcome back. I kind of like that music. We have a lot more. I have a library of hundreds of songs and ballads and different things like that to go through, a part of building this wonderful experiment in broadcasting right here in the heart of the New Rochelle train station. As I look, I get a kick out of, and I don't know if you can see it, but behind me, every once in a while, you'll see somebody, if you look back there, you'll see somebody running for the train. Ah, that is our guest. I'm sure that is him. Please welcome, without further ado, he is a defense attorney, but he's our go-to guy when it comes to crime because he's also was an investigator, ran investigations for the DA's office, and was a cop on the beat. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Robert. How are you? Everything's great.
Pretty good. I got a story that's bothering me, and only you can help me. Give me my sanity back. Yeah. 2 Brooklyn police officers were attacked while trying to arrest a man for drinking in public. We'll stop there. They beat the guy up. They beat the cop up. Okay. Police charged the guy with robbery, assaulting a police officer, and resisting arrest. He was given a violation for drinking in public. A judge ordered him released without bail at his arraignment. How? Oh, God, no, you're not responsible for it. but I want to destroy the studio when I read this. With all due respect to the new laws, with all due respect to wanting bail not to be onerous, blah, 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 how does a guy get to beat up a cop and no bail? How does this happen?
Well, if he was charged with, he was charged with assault. There's assault third, assault second. Assault second is usually charged when it's an assault on a police officer and there's an injury. So assault second's a felony. There should have been bail, obviously, in that situation. But again, Bob, it's the judge is the judge, and there we go. So
well, you see, because I am very slowly moving in a position of finding too many of our judges are incompetent, and I don't understand why we don't have a better oversight for them. I know that there's this whole notion of a conviction is a conviction; it must be permanent, blah
Right.
blah 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 blah. But I'm sorry.
I don't think it's incompetence, Bob. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No,
but
please do.
I don't know. It's just the way it is down there. I
No,
mean,
it is.
They see so many assault seconds down in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, the Manhattan area. I mean, these are rote crimes for these judges. They're coming in droves, and you know that you can. Well, you know, you get too used to it, I guess, and you just figure it's another case. You're not the guy. You're the judge. You're not the guy rolling around in the street with this guy who's punching you in the face and making you lose a tooth or, you know, God forbid, your life possibly. So that judges that don't take that into consideration, the extent of the injuries and everything, shame on them.
Then they ought not be judges. You know, I have a Pollyannish view of judges, and you notice I'm getting more and more opinionated now. I'm doing what this radio station was intended to do, which is be more honest rather than affected and controlled. Then they ought not be judges. It's a sacred job. In my view, because of the nature of my religious beliefs, which I just waxed about, a judge has a more sacred job than a priest. He's meting out justice in a country founded for it. We can't. I don't care if they assault 10 cops in a row and you got to build another jail. And that sounds like crazy right-wing rhetoric, but it's not. I'm anything but a right-winger. But we can't have people beating up the cops and walking the same day. That's anarchy.
Well, you know, look at Antifa, Bob. I mean, across the country, you get you just said the word, you know, the phrase left wing. People think that you should be allowed to smack the cops, beat the cops up, and I'm not being facetious. You see it with these police departments out in Portland, Oregon, and you know, these guys just stand there and they're ordered to stand down and take this abuse and everything. Once you do that, it's a slippery slope downhill, and nobody's going to pay attention to you. Remember over the summer when they're not actual assaults; they could be termed assaults, but the dumping of the water on the cops.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the city. So they show, hey, they don't have any respect. Nothing happened to these people. Let's dump water on them.
Well, again, now I know you got to go to court every day. So let me do the saying. You know, I'm at this now 15 years. And one of the, you know, and guys and gals that do radio, we often get asked, what have you learned doing news? Especially for a guy like me who was in corporate America first. I haven't been doing news since I'm 20. I mean, I was involved in trying to, as a speechwriter and a PR guy, to try and dupe them. But the first thing the most enduring thing I learned, oh my God, I hate to say this, but it is who you know in this world. That's a sad reality. The second was I don't trust DAs. And now, but moving up to third and working its way up is the competency and the consistency and the work of our judges.
Well, the city's a completely different animal, Bob. I mean, we've discussed this through the years with different aspects. You come up to Westchester, that's not happening. Okay, if a guy assaults a police officer, he's going to the Westchester County Jail.
Good.
If he can't get the bail money up.
Good.
And I would say that's across the board in Westchester, in the numerous courts we have, and in county court. So it's a different mindset down there. Look, being in uniform and rolling around with people in the street is not fun, and you want backup from the court. You go there, and all of a sudden, the guy's back on the street.
Yeah.
Now, as a defense attorney, I want the best thing for my client, and if the judge is going to let him go,
Well, you have to. No, I
sound crazy
understand that.
to certain people, but
no, I thoroughly
so
get
be
it.
it.
No, I get it. I get it. I thoroughly get it. But something's broken, and this is a long-time liberal and civil rights advocate. I don't think letting people get away with crimes is the way to solve the problem. I just don't.
But that's the whole thing. See, they're not crimes yet. They're alleged crimes.
Even alleged
And
crimes.
now I sound like a little
No, but you should.
liberal weenie. But
No.
Bob, I've seen it on both sides. I've seen it where what the police officers had said happened didn't happen, and video has borne that out. I've had a couple of recent cases where they say the defendant did A, B, C, D, and now a lot of the police officers,
I'm with you.
I can't say most, but a lot of them have the body cameras.
Michael,
and the videos doesn't bear it out.
I'm with you. I've been doing shows with Jeff Deskovic, and we're probably going to be doing a podcast on people who get accused of crimes and even convicted of crimes they don't commit. I get it. But if I show you the video and you see it on the video, and there's a lot of video now, and the cop lied, I want the guy, I don't even want him walking, I want the cop fired. But on the other hand, if the guy did the thing and he's not guilty until proven guilty in a court of law. Oops, my microphone just fell in my face. All right, shut up. You enjoyed
More
that.
microphone.
I kind of think of it as a lucky microphone. Mwah. I just kissed a cop and a freaking defense attorney. All right, fine. It's 7:33. I get too passionate. Man, I tell you, I don't know how you do what
Bob,
you do.
another thing you got to look at is bail. When you're talking about bail, this just popped into my head, so I interrupted you.
Yeah.
Bail is not meant as a punishment.
I know
Bail
that.
is meant to secure your return to court.
Yeah,
and
but-
if there's other reasons why a judge thinks you're going to return to court,
Even
bail
though
is appropriate,
I
or
can-
ROR is appropriate.
So I can walk out of here right now, beat up some, not here in Westchester, I guess, but if I was down in the Bronx, and don't get me started on the Bronx, because you have a lot of Bronx listeners, but I'm not a big fan of that.
My
borough.
son's an assistant district attorney in the Bronx.
Well,
so I
I'm
have
not a
nothing
big
against
fan of the Bronx because of all the crime down there. But having said that, if I walk out of this station and beat up a cop, I'll be back on the air tomorrow. That's wrong. Sorry. But it is what it is.
Well-
All right, listen, I gotta go. Maybe I need to take a stress pill. You did this, didn't you, Mike Duffy? You made the mic hit me in the
tried.
face. Thank you very, very much. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Bob.
it. Take care.
Sorry for being a little late.
No, that's all
Appreciate
right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
We got a new guest on the phone, and I hope I hit it right. He is, of course, the very fine mayor here in New Rochelle. Although because he's running for re-election, I probably shouldn't say very fine, but I think most people would agree with that. He is, of course, Noam Bramson. And two things. We want to catch up with him on some of the things going on in the city, but we also want to give him a chance to tell us why he ought to be reelected. It is 7:35. It is 47. It always gets colder before it gets warmer. I'll never figure it out. I'm not a meteorologist. The skies are clear. We have a clear day ahead, getting up to 67 or so. Beautiful day, actually, ahead. Please welcome, without further ado, Noam Bramson. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you? Mayor, is that you?
Bob, it's George Latimer.
Oh, you know what? George, if you will excuse me,
Yes.
I was I was cockeyed. You're on at 7 and the mayor's on at 8:20. Please forgive me for that. I inverted things in my tiny brain. County Executive George Latimer, you are not running for office. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing okay. As you can see, I transposed things in my brain. You sent me a couple of articles earlier today when we were confirming your visit. And if you want to respond to them, I know one was a magazine piece by...
No, I didn't hear I just missed what you said,
Oh.
Bob. I couldn't catch it.
That's okay. You had forwarded to me a couple of articles. Actually, I had seen one of them. And I was wondering if you wanted to respond to them in any way. Phil Reisman wrote a piece, I know, for his magazine. Is there anything you wanted to say about that?
Well, no, I just, I thought you'd share it for your enjoyment. It's a detailed article in City and State, talks a little bit about the administration that we've had now for almost 2 years, and how we're starting, and little analysis. Of course, Phil has been a chronicler of what happens in Westchester for many, many years, and he and I have interacted with each other many times, and he's been a presence on the airwaves, as we know. So.
Okay.
But, we're working. Let me just go proactively what we're doing. That's the article.
Well, that's where I was going to go. Yeah.
this is budget time, so we work as many municipalities do on a calendar year budget year, meaning January 1st is a new budget. So as we approach the second half as we're in the second half of October, we now have about roughly 3 full weeks to finalize our county budget, presented to the Board of Legislators on Friday, November 8th, and then they have a month, maybe a shade more than a month, to deliberate on it, make any changes that they propose, and hopefully we'll negotiate out any of those changes amicably and get to a final budget that we can adopt. So it's in place, for New Year. At the county level, we don't get involved in late budgets. Albany actually has avoided late budget for a long time now, but it had the history of it going back about 20 years ago. But the county doesn't have late budgets, so we expect to have one on time. And as I've said, in general terms, we intend to submit a budget that at the very least does not raise property taxes and might even lower them a little bit, depending on what opportunities we have to put together a budget that works, but at the same time is economical. What most people don't understand, and it's not because they're stupid, it's just they don't have the exposure to all the inside information. Most of what the county government does is mandated by the state government. We don't have the option of cutting things beyond a certain level because we must provide a county jail. We must have a probations department. We must have a sewage treatment, and we must have a host of these things which are required by law. So when somebody says just tighten your budget, they're not mindful of the parts of county government that cannot be cut, whether I want to it, you want to it as a citizen or not. And so working within those parameters is what's discretionary and what we have to try to do to deliver the results. And I think it also has to be said, and people hear the phrase unfunded mandates, again, they don't have a way to correlate it in their lives. They go about their lives and they just know what they pay in a tax bill. But we've had 3 things in the last couple of years that have been created as policies in the state that generate expense at the county level. One was the proposal, which became law, to raise the age, meaning that if you're a 16 or 17-year-old and you commit a serious criminal act that requires incarceration, you cannot be incarcerated in the standard county jail.
Mm-hmm.
You must be put in a separate secure facility, which means we have to create a separate secure facility, and we did that as economically as we could for the cost of about $38 million. That's serious money, and it had to be spent. We also now have new laws coming up with the new year that people probably won't interact with unless you get into the criminal justice law enforcement area, which are new laws regarding discovery of facts whenever a person is being criminally tried, and then bail and all these things. And that's an expense to the county that we haven't yet calculated, and there's no financial support from the state to do that. And then also early voting, which we are going to interact with starting this Saturday. You'll be able to vote for up to 9 days prior to this year's election, and that's going to be a new way of operating in New York State. But there's a cost for those extra hours being available, and they're going to be borne heavily by the county taxpayers, and that's because the state structured it that way. So the long and the short of it is that these things are on our table along with other worthy goals, and we're trying to work through them. And over the course of the next few weeks, we'll finalize the budget. And then the one question everybody will ask is, what happens to my taxes? Don't tell me about anything else. I just want to know what happens to my taxes.
Yeah, what happens to my taxes?
I don't care if you have to throw people out windows. Give me my low taxes.
What happens to my taxes, County Executive?
As I just said, we've made a commitment to freeze them or even lower them a little bit. So that's the big picture. If all you care about is the big picture, that's the big picture.
County Executive, you just went through a number of issues that those of us who have to do this for a living, it all makes sense. The unfunded mandates, these things that are demanded. But you seem, just from my view, you seem confident that the tax, the 1% tax increase that you put through, or that the legislature put through, and the work that you're doing is going to result in a budget that's not going to raise taxes. Is that a fair assessment? I know you just said it, but
and I'll tell you why. Because Rockland, Putnam, Long Island, and New York City all had a sales tax ratio higher than Westchester. We were below all of those counties. Last year, Putnam and Rockland, which have Republican executives, raised property taxes more than 2%, and we kept at the 2% level. So despite, the natural, two-party system where the other party wants to say you've been terrible, we've actually shown that we can, with less percentage in that we could perform. So now that we've equalized our sales tax across the board, by the way, a New Rochelle listener did not get an increase in sales tax if they shop in New Rochelle or Yonkers or White Plains. Their sales tax is the same as it was before. But by equalizing it in the wealthier communities, we now have the ability to hold the line on property taxes the next couple of years. And that's with all of these mandates that don't have dollars and cents attached to it. Just one general point, Bob. I know we have a little more time in this interview.
Yeah, you do. You have time this morning.
Context. Yeah. Here's something I think is important for people to understand. We have what is called a representative form of government. We do not have every single issue that is put before the voters at whatever level of, information they have about the issue. You elect representatives. And I have been elected to be county executive. I've had other positions, as we know. And in each of those cases, I don't act with impunity. I act knowing that I'm held accountable by the voters of the jurisdiction when I go before the voters again. I have been before the voters more than once. And I've been fortunate enough to have the endorsement of the voters more than once, which tells me that there isn't an outcry in the population at large over these decisions. These are rational decisions. Now, somebody who holds an ideology that says, I don't like government, I want to see it shrunk, I don't care what you have to do, I don't care what the impacts are, I just want to see less and less and less, that's a philosophy. I don't share it, and the majority of Westchester residents don't share it. There are places in the country that do have that philosophy. You can go to Texas, you can go to South Carolina, Kansas, and that's their philosophy. And they have certain advantages in terms of taxes. But I also know, and I'll switch policies for a second, in Texas where you have unlimited guns, you can have as much weaponry as you want. I read about a home invasion where people broke into a guy's house. So with all the guns and if I have a gun, I'll defer any future problems happening. It didn't work in Texas. So it tells me a lot of these ideological things that people point at us and they say New York is wrong, Texas is right, South Carolina is right. That's not any necessarily more right or wrong than any other policy. So I'm pursuing the policies that I believe I was elected to pursue. And when I can tell you that we're going to freeze or cut property taxes, when I can tell you that we're honoring our first responders, that we're taking all of the ethnic groups around and showing them respect. And we showed a lot of respect to the Italian American community over the last week, which is not always identified with the Democratic Party. When I can show you that we're working on behalf of veterans, and we've kept people on board who were affiliated with the prior administration, who were talented people who can produce results. And I say very straightforwardly, this is what a centrist Democrat looks like. This is what happens when you do progressive policies, but you also do practical policies that appeal to people who are more conservative. And except for the extreme ideologues who just don't want you in, and by the way, that's on both the left and the right. There are people on the far left that don't love me either. They think I'm not, sufficiently progressive and I should, support nationalization of oil companies and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think we're pursuing the intelligent policies. Now, you got to have some good luck. Good luck matters. We had good weather this year. Good weather meant Playland did well. Mm-hmm. The golf courses did well. I'm not in charge of the weather. But if I had bad weather, nobody was going to cut me any breaks.
Hey, wait a minute. County executive, aren't you supposed to take credit for the weather? Come on now.
I think the funny thing is, well, you've known me a long time. I try very hard to not take credit for things that I didn't do or things that other people did do. When we have some successes in our administration, I'm the first person to say, John Nona, our county attorney, brilliantly renegotiated that. Or Joan McDonald, our director of operations, her skill set was brilliant in being able to bring this to my talent was being able to convince John and Joan to work in this administration. Mm-hmm. I understand. When Ron Sochi comes up with a philosophy of something that involves veterans, or Jim Masano does some dynamic work, which he has done in consumer protection. I can't take credit for their work. I take credit for the fact that it happened within an administration that's big enough and broad enough to accept Republicans and Democrats within its fold. And that's what makes Westchester better. And that's very different from the color of politics right now. The color of politics right now is I'm right, you're wrong, I want to destroy you. And I don't think that works in the long run. And I know you have people out there who enjoy the provocation. They enjoy the argument and the debate. But many times they don't really care about the end result. What they care about is that we win. It's the way you feel about your baseball team. You want to win. There's no moral right or wrong in your team winning or losing. You just want them to win. And unfortunately, I don't think government works that way. I think we need to strive for intelligent policies. And I am more progressive, but by the same token, I take into account that there are conservative thoughts out there as well. Try to have a balance and hopefully do some good things. So we'll say, 2 years is not 4 years. And things can happen in the national scene that will affect the local.
We're going to come back to that in a minute. You have a few more minutes, don't you? County Executive George Latimer is our guest. He's here each and every Monday at 7:35. Why I said 8:20 when my brain took a flea. We're going to be right back with the County Executive. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. Marrone in the morning, or Mornings with Bob Marrone is our proper name. We're going to share the weather with you and some of our sponsors. All righty, let's take a look at the weather once again. It is 48 on its way to 67 today. Few clouds, mostly sunny skies. The temperature will be 64 degrees. The wind will be out of the northeast, 10 to 15 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 46. The wind will be light. Tuesday, that would be tomorrow, cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature will be 59. The wind will be light again. And Wednesday, we'll cut it off at Wednesday. We're not going to go all the way out to the weekend. Lots of sunshine and breezy. The high will be 62. The overnight low, 43 degrees. The weather this morning is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. Also by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Khan, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. You can come here and we'll give you that experience, or we'll take reality to you. That's virtual reality. Plug in virtual reality. Call us at 914-727-2726. And as we look at what's coming up this morning, we've got, of course, the second half of our interview with County Executive George Latimer. At the top of the hour, Mayor Noam Bramson will join us. Now, we have a lot to talk with him about going on in the city. Particularly that one legislator has come out and said he's sorry he voted for the development. But more importantly, he also is running for re-election. Ron Belmont, the mayor of Harrison, is with us at 8:50. And at 9 o'clock, Sean Patterson Howard. She is running for mayor. And we've reached out to Andre Wallace several times. She's running for mayor in Mount Vernon. He also running for mayor. Again, we've reached out. We've been unable to close that deal, but we will keep working. But right now, we're going to keep working and talking with the county executive, George Latimer. Thanks for staying with us. County,
so good to be with you.
Always is. County executive, let's look forward. Let's do a little retrospective here. As you look back on the last 2 years, and fortunately, you're not running for office. You've run a million times, and I think I've covered all of them, except the very early ones. What has it been like? What have you learned that has been the biggest surprise after 2 years?
Well, I think there are 4 or 5 things that make this job different from the ones I've had before. The first obvious one is that this is not a legislative job. And in a legislative job, you advocate for policies, you vote on bills and so forth, but you don't administer day-to-day anything. And here in this government, we have responsibility to make decisions every day. I have innumerable meetings, and those meetings don't end up with, I'm going to support this bill. The meetings end up with, we have to do this thing specifically, and we have to figure out how we're going to do it, how we're going to pay for it, yada, yada, yada. All those things become very important in a way that they didn't as a legislature. So that's number one. Number two, as I've described, the size and scope of the county government, although it's much smaller than the state, is still pretty expensive. When you treat sewerage and house prisoners and patrol the highway, parkways, I should say, et cetera, there's a lot of work being done by people who work for the county government. And at any point in time, you get a phone call. There's a tree down in Scout Field. What are you doing about it? Or, whatever those things are. And you can't say, that's not me. I didn't do that personally. No, you didn't do it personally, but so what? It's you who run the government. So, how do you respond to it? And we find that putting out fires oftentimes takes up a lot more of our day. I go into the office in a little while, and I have 5 or 6 things I want to accomplish today. And before I get an hour into it, I've got 2 other issues that have flared up and have become my issue of the day, whether I wanted to be or not. And so you have to accept that that's what an executive job is. Now, I did a version of that in my corporate career when I ran, sales marketing departments, and same situation. I had pressures on me that were not necessarily of my own making, but I had to deal with them.
And county executive, don't you get the usual stack of calls, like a half-inch thick, and those little blue papers? You get those too, don't you?
Absolutely, I do. And in fact, many times those calls are the things that are important to the individual. But when you look at the topic area, it really affects 1, 2, 3 people maybe, and you have to treat it with the same importance that you do an issue that deals with 50 people, because that one person is going to be damn mad at you if you ignore it or you treat it as if it doesn't matter to you because it matters to them. And when you multiply that by a county, there's a lot of those phone calls. We also interact with the local governments all the time. And I think I've been able to recast a relationship with the local governments that's been very positive. Some of it is the sharing of revenue. Some of it is just the way we've conducted ourselves as an administration to be cooperative and working with those local governments. And it's important. I come out of, having served in the Rise City Council, and I don't want people at the municipal level to feel like the county doesn't care. And you hear a lot of that already in the way, local governments deal with the state and the federal government. So why shouldn't we be a good friend and a good neighbor rather than just, well, we don't have to do that. That's not our job, kind of response, which can be the case. I would also say, the scope of the county is large. You can drive from where you're sitting right now, you can drive about 35 miles northwest, still be in Westchester County, and be in parts of the county where the issues of our backyard don't matter to them.
Right.
If we're talking about Rochelle Family Court, it doesn't mean anything to the people of Peekskill. And the problems of homeless housing in downtown Peekskill doesn't mean anything to the people of Pelham. But the bottom line is they're both county entities, and they have to be dealt with. So whether or care about a particular issue, the issue matters at some level.
What have been the pleasant surprises? I mean, in every job there are always pleasant surprises, even one as demanding as yours.
You know what? I tell you what, I'm really surprised, Bob, that a lot of the issues that I inherited when I walk in the door, frankly, were not that hard to solve. And I shouldn't even say that.
No, go ahead.
Diminish it, or whatever it is that I might want to call my. But we came in the door. There was nothing going on with the Rochelle Family Court. We came in the door, and 2 pools were closed in Yonkers. Actually, one was open and then had to be reclosed to be fixed. We come in the door, and the Miller House in North Castle is collapsing. We come in the door, and West Health Project is empty for 6 years. And we look at these things, and as we discuss the policies behind it and the ability to finance these changes, we realize this is not that complicated. It's a matter of philosophy. Do you believe that you should open those pools, fix that house, get that family court together, reestablish the CDBG program, and step by step, these things were not the horrific, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't seem to resolve this after 6 years of debate. We worked hard. We had some luck, as I said, and we were making progress. So to me, some of these issues were really issues that were created because of the philosophy that said we can't resolve it this way. We have to do it this other way. Whereas you come in practical-minded, and all of a sudden, things are starting to happen, and they're happening well.
Let's take a look before you go, kind of like a mid-year assessment. You've got 2 more years in office, and I know you haven't decided to run again. Probably you will, at least my money says you will. But separate from that, what do you see as the big challenges in the next 2 years?
Well, I think we have to deliver on our promises relative to the budget, that this budget and the next budget are both stabilized. And while if I did run again, look, I think it's a realistic assumption to assume I will at this point, although I can't imagine serving any more than 2 terms. The 22 budget won't be out by the time Election Day 21 comes, but I think it's realistic to think that we're going to try very hard to see if we can do things 3 times in a row. That would be an effort. It's not automatic, though. And the sales tax revenue, as strong as it is, does not automatically offset the fact that these mandates keep coming, and mandates that I can't see right now could come and could change the financial structure, in year 3 or something like that. But finances are always going to be the number one issue.
Now,
We have to go further on the airport and make some decisions about how we're going to see that play out. I think we've made good first steps the first 2 years, but there's more complicated issues ahead of us. I think the playland issue is very much in play. We're in court, obviously, and that will be resolved, I assume, in a court of law. But we think we're right, and we're going to press forward to to try to run the park properly and not give up on it and not let it become some developers future billion-dollar payday.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that some of those issues will be resolved properly. And it's going to take work, and there's no guarantees of success. You just work every day, and you hope for the best.
Well, that's all you can do. I want to thank you for all your time this morning. Anything you'd like to shout out about any meetings before I send you on your way, County Executive?
Yeah, I think it's important to know, and I know that folks in the listening area aren't going to slip up to Peekskill, but we have the second of our 2 budget forums. Before we submit the budget, they were getting input on budgetary things. That'll be in Peekskill Wednesday night, 7 to 9 at the Field Library. We had one at Sarah Lawrence last week in the down county area. And then when we submit the budget, then the Board of Legislators is going to have a series of public hearings. One of them will be in the southern part of the county, one in the northern part, and then the final one in White Plains as we head toward the budget.
Well,
there'll be more public hearings. We do a lot of things with public input, and we're not looking to shut the public out. We welcome their opinions, even if they conflict. As long as you're courteous, you can say whatever you want. You can be as disagreeable as you want, but we expect to see civility and respect.
Okay. County Executive George Latimer, thank you so very much. We'll talk to you again next week. George Latimer, everybody. We'll be back right after this with, guess what's coming up, folks? We're going to take Jake to the cleaners, or we're not. We're going to find out how his picks went. He's got a smile on his face. He's chewing on his straw. We'll be back right after this. That music's, whoops, ooh, I sound very loud, don't I? That music's very cool, brought to you by our Library of Music. 50, no, it's not 52. I'm looking at the wrong note. It's 47, and clear, sunny, clear skies, getting up to 67 today. What a nice day. Welcome. It is Monday, October 21st, 2019. I'm Bob Marrone, and this is Mornings with Bob Marrone on Radio Westchester. You can listen live on radiowestchester.com. You can also, and some of you are reading or looking at us right now. You're not reading, you're looking at us on Facebook. You know that little crawl on the bottom? Soon we will be putting what's coming up next, different other shows that are upcoming on that little crawl beneath the video that you're looking at. You can also look at us or watch us on Instagram, YouTube, Periscope, etc. But mostly, you can always come home to radiowestchester.com. He's in the house. Jake Schaefer's in the house. Your picks, sir. How did they go?
Well, I know you're busy here.
Oh, no,
weekend,
this is for you.
No. You don't know how the picks
I know
went
the
this
Giants.
weekend.
No, I don't know. Tell me.
So we got the Giants. We're really hoping the Jets can pull it out for me tonight. Another perfect weekend, 5-0 on the season.
What do you mean 5? No. Give me the individual. Give me the summary after your.
Well,
I told
you.
Give me the picks one by one.
I told you on Friday that I didn't trust the Giants. I still think they stink. Proven right yesterday. Pathetic showing.
No,
Pathetic
you took
coaching.
the Giants, and you didn't take the Giants. Okay. Okay, just tell people. This is radio.
Cardinals getting 3 on the road. And then I went with Tom on this one. The line actually went down.
Tom from Pelham?
Yes, and the line actually went down to 4.5, but I gave it the Packers giving 5.5, and they didn't even
Over who?
need the line change against the Raiders. So
So the Packers beat the Raiders by what score?
it was a blowout. I think it was 27, or I think it was 42-27.
Okay, we'll check. I have the source document here.
And then, so that makes us 5-0 on the year so far, and we've got the Jets going tonight. I took the Jets, getting 9.5 at home against the New England Patriots.
These picks, by the way, are brought to you by Dominic's Cigars. Okay, at 2049 Boston Post Road. Continue now.
Very good. Yep, so we're just rooting for the Jets. I don't think they're going to win, but
What's the spread in the Jet game?
9.5. I don't even think they're going to keep it close. I could see it being them down by 14 late in the game and
Are
getting
you giving? Are you giving or taking?
I'm taking the 9.5, but I think they're gonna somehow get within 9.5 tonight.
You're actually betting on the Jets?
Yeah, I am.
What's in your coffee? What coffee did you bring in for me? I want whatever's in your coffee.
I think this isn't your normal Patriots team. I think the Jets have a little momentum going there at home. I think that they're gonna have a nice crowd.
Okay.
9.5 seems right to me.
All right, so the Cardinals defeated the Giants 27-21, and you took the Cardinals with points. The Giants were actually favored?
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see the other games. I'm looking at my notes here. Your other
Packers-
game was
Packers,
the Packers,
Raiders.
42-24.
Yeah.
And you gave how many?
5.5.
Oh, piece of cake.
Oh.
How come I didn't bet on your games? No wonder you came in a good mood. And the third game was
Tonight is I did the Thursday night game. I took the Chiefs against the lowly Broncos, and that was a pretty simple one as well. So tonight, keep things perfect. Let's go Jets.
Let's go. So you took 9.5 with the Jets. Let's see what they're saying about the Jets. Not a lot about the Jets. All right, let's talk about a couple of other things. I don't like to pick on relief pitchers. I think they're overrated, actually. And I don't think you should be paying $20 million to a guy that pitches one inning every 3 or 4 nights. But that's what they do. And so Aroldis Chapman comes in after a great comeback by LeMahieu. And what did you think of that? And do you think he ought to get beat with a slider? I mean, I'm really nitpicking now. But when I'm paying you $20 million a year because you throw 100 miles an hour, and Altuve, who I always told you he's my favorite player on the team.
It's tough to trick Altuve, that's for sure.
No, but I want, if I'm going to lose, it's like with and this actually happened, as you know, and people forget this because he was so great and had such great poise. But Mariano Rivera gave up a walk-off World Series home run
against Arizona.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I want him going down with his best stuff, don't you?
Tough to get one past Altuve, though. He's just that kind of a hitter. I can understand the thinking.
Throw it the SOB. He's my favorite player in baseball. Because how does he have that much power at my size?
He's just he's a stocky guy.
Yeah, he's
built like Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he's such a great ball player. He's been my favorite for a couple of years now.
Best hitter, impossible to strike out.
Well, especially when, throw him low. Did you see that pitch?
Yeah.
He clobbered that thing.
That was a fantastic game.
I was actually I'm going to sneeze. Can you believe it? Talk. Say something.
Fantastic game. Lots of highs and lows.
Oh, it was a good game. And now they're talking about, and you know what, Aroldis Chapman's still a great pitcher, and that happens. That's what relief pitchers play Russian roulette. Do you think there'll be any changes? They say they need another starter. I agree.
Yeah, or they could grab. Cole's a free agent. The great Pirates. Astros pitcher Garrett Cole. He's a free agent this year.
I would love for them to pick him up, but every time they do that, they get a couple of good seasons out of the guy. Like
he's
CC.
29. He's going to ask for a huge.
Oh, he's got 5.
Contract.
Oh, he's going to cost more money than most counties have.
He'll cost close to $400 million, I think. But the thing about him is, I don't think he can handle the New York City spotlight.
Is that right? Is he a sensitive dude?
Yes, I don't.
Well, we've seen it before. Whitman and there was that one pitcher, really a good pitcher, but he had a little trouble in New York. Hughes.
I know Kevin Brown had a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
here.
Kevin Brown and. All right, so much for baseball. Who do you like in the World Series? We think we're going to have you do picks, too, and get our friends from Dominic Cigars to support that.
I'm going to root hard for the Nationals. I like Strasburg. I know you're a big Strasburg fan. And
I love pitchers in general.
and I always root for the underdogs, and they're pretty big underdogs
Murph,
going to Houston.
I don't know, it's going to be hard for me to root against my boy Altuve, but yeah, I liked Washington more when Daniel Murphy was there. Did you ever have one incident make you a fan of a player? I think it was like 2012, and I'm driving home from a meeting in Connecticut. It was a long drive, and I had on Mike Francesa, like everybody else. Still, people pick on him, and he's a bloviator, but he's really good.
He was on he had a great Twitter rampage yesterday because the Giants coach quit his show mid-season.
Yeah, I heard that. But I want you to tell me about that. But apropos of that, he spent an entire show about how bad a ball player Daniel Murphy was. And I was indifferent. So he must have blessed him, because I started following Dan Murphy. He hit the cover off the ball for the next 5-6 years, and then had that incredible playoff. And then, of course, had great years with the Nationals. The guy is what we, in sports, flat out good hitter. Just flat out can hit.
Great
and
hitter.
I always wondered I guess it's part of the kind of radio he does. What made him go after one ball player? I mean, I know he's a mediocre
Murphy's
fielder.
made some very controversial statements about his private beliefs. So I think that rubs a lot of. He's kind of reminds me of Kurt Schilling, not to the extreme.
I don't think
of
he's
Kurt
to that
Schilling,
extreme.
but he's made some.
He's a conservative guy, and me, here I am, a center-left talk show host. I still love the guy. I don't care what their politics are.
Great hitter.
But is a great hitter, and I'm so glad he made it, and he made it as well as he did. I don't know if he was hurt, but Colorado, they were using him as a pinch hitter almost the last month of the season. And
I don't think he was right. I think he was a little.
He was hurt in the beginning of the season, and he was hitting like 285, 290, getting 2-3 hits every other day, like he usually does. He had a couple of bad games, and then they put him on the bench. But he's going to be a bargain for somebody. But I think he's still in the middle of a good contract. Let's move on to hockey. I don't know if you're aware of it.
Rangers are not doing well this year.
No, they're not. And I got to tell you, and again, I do know the game. I'm not going to pretend I don't. I think they have I think they drank too much Kool-Aid about rushing defensemen. And I mean, I even have this argument with my grandson. I wish he wasn't in school. I get him on the phone right now. He looks down his nose at Mark Stahl. And Mark Stahl is what defense is all about. You still have to stop the puck from going in the net. And I just think that in a part of their rebuild, they're trying to put in too many young defensemen too fast. That's my take.
Tough time of year for the Rangers, the Yankees, and the Giants. But how about Buffalo? Sabres looking good.
Well, you
Bills
can see it coming. You
looking
have
fantastic.
Rasmus Dahlin. Well, the Bills, yeah. Well, the Bills haven't been anything much since. So, hey, I know this is inside baseball. What do you think of the changes in the studio? You like them, huh?
Oh, it looks fantastic.
But do you know what it looked like Friday? So I get the call. They're in the middle of, once again, massive, because we now have, look, see the phone, see all the new stuff.
It was such shambles, I could barely concentrate on my picks. It's a miracle, and I'm still perfect on the year.
Oh, would you stop? I'm a miracle. No, if you came in, I actually screamed. I came in here, I got the call. I came in here Saturday night, and this floor, okay, folks, you can't see it, and I'm trying to see what you see, but right over there. All the equipment, every computer, every screen, every video, every microphone was unplugged. And in the middle of the floor was a big pile of wires and spaghetti. And I just screamed. And anyway, and so we were here at 5:30 in the morning. Then yesterday, several more hours. But so the proof of the pudding's in the eating. We can do everything. We can take 3 calls at the same time. We now have a secret private line for our MVP callers, which I haven't had, or I should say VIP callers. I haven't had at any of the stations I've been at for 15 years. But this is a line so that when we have the guest on, callers can still call in and they can talk 3 ways, 4 ways. And we also have the ability now to provide studio quality for a regular that is not in station. So that, let's say you're home and you want to do your picks and you got the flu, but we don't want people to know you're not here. you'll sound like you're on the air. So we have a lot more capability today, and we also we'll start our literally podcasting now. We put that capability in over the weekend. And for some reason, as tired as I ought to be, I feel good today. So this is the new studio. Anyway, and you can see we even changed the video perspective. We're not done with that yet. We're going to change this perspective as well so that we can get the visitors and myself, which can only do so many things at a time. So that's what we did this weekend. Now, are you percolating on any picks for next week?
Not yet. Need to see the injury reports, the police reports. You know how it goes.
Oh yeah, you know how I feel about that. They should be looking at the. You haven't listened to the show today. I got religious people probably hate me today. Conservatives hate me today, and liberals hate me today.
Wow, that's one full swoop.
I'm sure I got everybody. Did you hear about the guy beats up a cop, robs somebody? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you were listening earlier.
Read about it.
They let him walk. What is the world coming to? All righty, we're going to take a break very briefly. We'll be back with the top stories of the day, and then we're going to talk with the mayor of New Rochelle, Noam Bramson. Jake's Picks brought to you by Dominic Cigars right here in Larchmont. Stay right there. A lot more to come. Good morning. This morning's show is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Also brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. You can come here for virtual reality by calling 914-727-2726. That's 914-727-2726. And we'll set you up with virtual reality right here in the studio. Or for your party, your bar mitzvah, your wedding, whatever it is, we'll bring plug-in virtual reality to you. Once again, call us on 914-727-2726. 48 going to 67. Some of the stories we're following for you this morning, some of them troubling, others not. This is a heart-wrenching story because we do believe it may involve depression or someone who's troubled in it, from a very unusual place. Fears are mounting as a West Point cadet remains missing. Again, remains missing with his weapon. The military academy says the cadet was scheduled to participate in a military skills competition over the weekend, but never showed. He's not been seen at the military academy since Friday evening. This was in News 12 today. His M4 style rifle is also nowhere to be found, but officials do not believe he has any ammunition or the magazines that contain same with him as well. Authorities don't believe he poses a threat to the public, but he may be, and this is the key, a danger to himself. Anyone with information, please, we're going to give out the number twice if you're up the valley close to West Point or you know the individual, even though they've not given us his name. Here's the number to call, 845-938-3333, 845-938-3333. And this is unusual, but it happens. Well, that's not unusual, but that it was an explosion is this in News 12 as well. 2 people were hurt after a kitchen fire in Portchester. Officials say the flame sparked around 4 o'clock yesterday after some type of explosion within a gas oven inside a building on Westchester Avenue. My daughter, if you're looking, you sure you weren't cooking for these people? She's not a great cook. Firefighters helped 2 people get out of the building. There is no word yet on the extent of their injuries, but they, other than they were not thought to be serious. Now, this story is troubling. A teen, this in News 12 as well, a teen is facing charges after police say video of a rape was sent to several Brewster High School students. A video of a rape on Snapchat. chat. My goodness. A 16-year-old is facing rape and sexual abuse charges because of his age. No details are being released about the student at this time, according to the News 12 piece. Parents in the district received an email from the school notifying them of the incident involving the video that had circulated in the community. The school had been notified about the situation through an anonymous alert system. Wow. And one parent says children are having a hard time dealing with it. How can you be proud of a rape and then post it on Snapchat? Well, we hope to get more information on that story, but you know how those things go. In fact, the information forthcoming will be controlled depending on the economic status, ethnicity of the perpetrator, no doubt. 38 years ago, 2 Nyack police officers and an armed guard were killed in the robbery on Mountain View Avenue. A memorial was held in Nyack to honor the victims. The victims included Sergeant Edward Grady, Officer Waverly Chipper Brown, and Brinks guard Peter Page. May they rest in peace. Page was killed by robbers as he stole $1.6 million from the armored car outside of Nanuet National Bank back on October 20th, 1981. Again, the anniversary was yesterday. The 2 officers were killed about an hour later at a throughway roadblock. We know the issue well because lately the getaway driver, Judith Clark, has been in the news, sentenced to 75 years in prison until Governor Andrew Cuomo commuted her sentence in 2016, making her eligible for parole. She finally walked free last spring. Now, a lawsuit is trying to reverse the parole board's decision and put Clark back in prison. And my favorite story of the day, my favorite story to criticize, actually, not the story, but add to my angst today. This in LoHub, an Amos family now has filed a lawsuit seeking to overturn New York state law banning religious exemptions to vaccinations for students. And it involves unvaccinated children attending Cranberry Marsh Schools, a private Amish-run school in rural Seneca County. That's about 60 miles southeast of Rochester. And all we can say to that is tough tiddlies. They're saying, we fled Europe because of religious persecution. This is not religious persecution. This is putting religion in its proper place in these United States of America. Your religion and your practice of that religion, and I don't care what you are, and I get to throw these opinions out now in this new version of my morning show. You have a religious belief that endangers other people, and not vaccinating your children does. Sorry. Stuff it. You've got a religious belief that breaks the law. Stuff it. This is America. This is a secular country. You're allowed to practice your religion. You're free to do it. But any of those practices that violate our laws make you an outlaw. And that includes not vaccinating your children. It's now the law of the land. So that's how I feel about that. And I couldn't be more strong about it. We need to embrace what's best in religion, but leave it out of the public square. All righty, we're looking forward now to our next guest, Mayor Noam Bramson. We're going to get an update from him. We want to ask him about a feature that was in the paper the other day. We thought he answered it quite well. He's also running for re-election. This would be, I guess, a third elected term. One was, or a fourth, but one was he was appointed when his predecessor moved on. So, there he is now. All righty. Without further ado, please welcome the mayor of New Rochelle, Noam Bramson. And again, I remind you, he's also running for re-election. So we have a couple of reasons to talk with the mayor. Good morning,
Bob.
Mayor Bramson. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to be with you again.
Oh, it's always good to have you. Mayor, I'm going to get right to one issue before we even talk about your reelection. And there was an extensive piece in the paper last week. One of the council members who's running for reelection came out and said, now this is, I realize I'm cherry picking here, concerned about the effects of all the developments, said if I had to vote again, I wouldn't, which surprised a lot of people, including you. Now, the paper did a good job. They went to you for a, if you will, not a recant, but if you will, a reply to that. And your reply was thorough. Tell us about how you feel the development has gone, what your concerns are. Because our take was everybody has the natural concerns of how do we get through the parking that'll be a problem and construction and putting in sewer lines. But his concerns focused on, are we going to have enough cops, firemen, and women, school spaces and so forth? What say you?
Well, I do have to say that, as you indicated, those comments in the paper from one of my colleagues were somewhat surprising. That's not a view he's expressed to anyone here at City Hall, publicly or privately, and in fact, he's voted not just for the initial plan, but for modifications to the plan consistently all the way up to today. But I recognize it's a political season, and sometimes people say things for that purpose, and we're all still colleagues, and we all work together for the betterment of our community. So there's no need to sort of get into a tiff about it, and let me instead address the substance of the issue.
That's where I wanted to go.
Great. Look, let's remember what the goal of our downtown plan was. It was to attract investment so that we have a downtown, a city center that is thriving economically, culturally, and socially. A true mixed-use environment with housing, with shops, with restaurants, with all the things that make us proud of our city center and that attract people from not just New Rochelle but from the surrounding area, and that, of course, also benefits us financially and fiscally by generating new revenue that can be reinvested in public goods, whether that's for the city government or for the school district or for tax relief. And in order to accomplish those goals, we put in place a comprehensive framework that was based on extensive public input in many different forums. And we are enormously excited by how well it's gone since then. If anything, the pace of improvement has exceeded our expectations. We've got about 30 projects that have been approved, about a dozen that are under construction. The first of them are beginning to lease up. What that means, by the way, is that although the trend lines are terrific, because only a couple of them are starting to be occupied, we haven't yet experienced the benefits that will come from this growth. That's still ahead, and in the meantime, we're going through some of the growing pains. So it is completely understandable that residents would have concerns about things like traffic management and parking and impacts on public services. And what I want to emphasize is we went through a rigorous process of thinking these things through in advance so that we made sure that there was adequate infrastructure to support growth, that developers are paying their fair share to cover expenses, that taxpayers will come out ahead, that the building design is of the highest quality, incorporating the best planning principles that make streets walkable and attractive. So I have enormous confidence that the end product of this change will be something that people in New Rochelle will be excited about, proud of. But as we go through the process, it is part of our job in city government to address concerns in a way that's respectful, to listen, to make adjustments when necessary, and to recognize that change can be challenging and needs to be managed with enormous care and sensitivity.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. My guest, Mayor Noam Bramson, the mayor of New Rochelle, he's also running for re-election. Apropos of that, last week we did have with us Brandon Conroy running on the Republican line against you. And he expressed some similar concerns, as did your colleague, but a little differently, frankly, more benignly. In terms of he's concerned, again, about walking in and around the city, that there may be too much development. And I'm not quoting him directly, I'm paraphrasing, but that he didn't really, his view of the city wasn't one of a very urban place. But is it not true that that ship has sailed?
Well, let me be clear that what we're trying to do is balance preservation and change.
Yes.
So our growth objectives are really concentrated in the downtown area where there's access to mass transit, where there's pre-existing infrastructure, where density makes sense and can be supported. Outside of the downtown area, our goal is preservation, including preservation of our charming, historic, suburban neighborhoods with protection and enhancement of open space, increase of minimum lot sizes. So it's not as though we have a one-size-fits-all approach to all of New Rochelle. We can be both a city in our core and a suburb elsewhere, and I think both of those characteristics can be preserved. In terms of Brendan's broader comments, look, he and I are about the same age. We both grew up in New Rochelle. I respect that he cares about the city. I'm sure he knows that I care about the
Yeah, he
city
does.
as well. And growing up, what I remember is that we had a terribly depressed downtown environment that was a drag on New Rochelle's civic image and property values, that created a sort of sense of disappointment among many residents. And New Rochelle had a reputation as a city that couldn't get out of its own way. And it's really only in the last few years with this framework that we've broken that prior narrative of failure and created a dynamic where New Rochelle is really seen as a regional model. And so it concerns me that someone running for mayor would talk about undoing that progress when we haven't yet had an opportunity to fully execute a plan that, again, was based on really extensive public input and support. So I think we need to make sure that we continue moving in the right direction. I'm working hard every single day in order to accomplish that purpose. And I should note that downtown revitalization, it's an important priority, but it's not the only thing on our plates. There are lots of other things that are also priorities as well.
Mayor, speaking of your career, now I think I got it wrong because you've been mayor since I've been here. Now, your term that you're running would be a third term running, am I correct? But you actually were appointed before that, so it would be like a fourth term.
Yeah, I'm finishing up my third full term.
Yeah, that's okay.
And it was a little bit prior to that because the prior mayor, Tim Idoni, was elected to countywide office, and so I initially assumed the office in the middle of his term.
Well, one of the
so it sort of requires a longer explanation than usual.
No, I understood. I just wanted to be sure I got it right because one of the comments, some callers make it, please pardon me, and Mr. Conroy did too, that you've been in office one way or another for 25 years and it's time for change without really any reasons for that. But you have been in office a long time. There are many ways to look at it. How do you look at it?
Well, yeah, I've heard that comment. And look, to me, the issue is not how long you've been in office. The issue is what have you done with that time? Have you accomplished things that are meaningful to the community? And I think the record will show that I've been a real asset to New Rochelle, not just the issue we've already discussed, but you look at our focus on sustainability, which has been a personal priority for me. I was the principal author of our sustainability plan. You look at our capital investments through our 10-year infrastructure plan that includes roads, parks, improvements that provide a real return on our tax dollars. You look at strong police-community relations, which have brought our crime rate down to a 60-year low. You see that our municipal finances are sound, best bond rating in 80 years, a robust fund balance, one of the lowest municipal tax rates among Westchester cities. I'm proud of the work that I've done. I believe deeply in public service. I believe in New Rochelle. And I think that the skills and experiences and perspective that I've gleaned during my time in government have already benefited New Rochelle, and I hope will continue to benefit New Rochelle.
Do you still like the job?
I feel grateful for this job just about every day. Having grown up in New Rochelle and being really fiercely loyal to this community, to have a hand in governing the city, to work with colleagues whom I respect and admire, to address day-to-day concerns that come to my attention from neighbors and residents, it's enormously gratifying. So I don't take the privilege of service for granted. I feel like the residents of New Rochelle have put their trust in me, and it's my job to redeem that trust at every possible opportunity. And that's why I throw myself into this work. And it's not an easy job. It's
that was
not
my
a
next
ceremonial
question.
job. It's not a part-time job, as some people have suggested. It requires a full-time, dedicated commitment to govern a city of 80,000 successfully. And I've applied myself, as I said before, in a way aimed at justifying and redeeming the trust that people have placed in me.
We're talking with Mayor Noam Bramson, the mayor of New Rochelle. We were talking about development, but we have evolved towards the other reason he's with us today. He is, of course, running for re-election in November. On November 5th, he has been challenged by a Republican, Brendan Conroy. Mayor, a little more about you. There are some people that have just moved to New Rochelle. There are some listening to this program that has this political side to it clearly for the first time. A little bit about you. What first got you interested in public service?
Well, you can trace that to a lot of different sources. My parents were both refugees in the Second World War. They were born in Poland. Their extended families were completely wiped out. They were transported to Russia and Central Asia, the Middle East, and eventually came to the United States. And I think because of their experience, had almost a reverence for what it means to live in a democratic society where we are free to think and act as we choose. And so those were values that were really impressed upon me from a very young age. And I think it's also one of the reasons why they chose to live in New Rochelle, because they wanted a place where having a foreign accent was not a barrier to relationships and friendships. They wanted a place that was diverse by every metric, lots of different traditions, circumstances, beliefs, socioeconomic characteristics. And I think they saw that as part of what was necessary in educating their children, and now something I see as necessary in educating my own children, who are both students at New Rochelle High School. So I think part of it comes from that, and part of it on a kind of less elevated plane. I was involved in Model Congress when I was a student at New Rochelle High School, and was really enamored of seeing kids debating issues
Isn't
with
that
passion
great?
and conviction. Yeah, and I thought, like, this is really what I want to do with my life. So I went on to college and graduate school at Harvard, where I majored in government, and I got a master's degree in public policy. I returned home. Began working for Congresswoman Nita Lowey, who just recently announced her retirement, mainly as a speechwriter. And when the opportunity arose, I ran for local office and committed myself to the community of New Rochelle. So that's kind of my story. I've had a little bit maybe of a one-track mind from a career perspective, which I don't necessarily advise other people to do. When I speak to younger people, I say, well, think about maybe doing a range of things before you settle on one field. But for me, community service has always been a passion, and I feel fortunate to be in a field where I can deliver on that passion.
Just a little aside, Mayor. Your mom went through. I'm aware of her. A lot of trials and tribulations before she moved to this country. Now I run into her more than I run into you in the downtown, and she's never. Now I'm sure she has them, but is she ever in a bad mood? She's never when I see her.
She's pretty amazing. So my mom is 86.
Yeah.
She lives independently in the Skyline. It was originally Avalon and then Halstead. Now it's the Skyline, in the heart of the downtown. She sold the house where I grew up in about 10 years ago. And she's remarkable. I mean, really cheerful, upbeat, supportive. If your mom's not in your corner, then you're really in trouble.
Yeah.
Of course.
I've seen her at your speech. Yes, it's true.
My mom's really wonderful, and my brothers and I feel very fortunate that my mom is healthy and happy and able to function and remain in a community where she has so many relationships.
Yeah.
And by the way, not to bring it back to public policy,
No,
but
go ahead.
we often talk about the downtown development as only about millennials, and that's part of it. But it's also about giving housing options to people who want to age in place, like my mother, who want to downsize from a home and need those choices. So if we do this right, this will be a healthy community for everyone who wants to be a part of it.
Well, I can tell you just from my own experience, several colleagues in your work and in the press that I know of, they've done exactly what you're saying is they've downsized from big homes because their kids are off. They're off to college. They're off to their new careers. Again, our guest is Noam Bramson. It is 8:35. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. You can listen live on RadioWestchester.com. You can watch us if you like that as well on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and so forth. We are the station at the station. Mayor, you talked a little bit too about your kids have gone to the high school. We went through a lot 2 years ago. You stepped in to get involved to help the schools through that. And how do you feel about the future of the school system now as we come out of that period, a new superintendent, a new principal, and so forth? And how much involvement do you believe that the mayor and the city itself should have in the school system?
So on one level, I think the mayor should be involved, and on another, the mayor shouldn't. I've always made it my business to be, in broad terms, supportive of our public schools. I think that they are absolutely vital to the health and future and reputation of New Rochelle as a whole. And so whether it's affirming in every context the value and worth of our public school system, whether it's being supportive of school budgets, whether it's partnering with the school district whenever appropriate. So, for example, we share public works services now, which has been a savings for taxpayers. In all of those respects, I think the mayor can play a constructive role. Where I draw the line is getting involved in specific issues of school policy or school personnel, because that is a matter that's entrusted to the Board of Education, and we should recognize that there are two independent institutions, both of which serve the same community, but which have distinct responsibilities. And so I've tried to walk that line in an appropriate way, being supportive whenever I can, but also respecting the independence of the schools. And I'll say from a parent perspective, we have been so grateful for the quality of education that our sons have received. I mean, they've been in the public schools from kindergarten on. They're now in 9th and 10th grade at New Rochelle High School. Very happy there, like their teachers, feel comfortable in the school environment. And, as I said before, are also really lucky to have classmates who are so diverse, because I think that's as much of an education as what you receive formally in the classroom. I'm not blind to the fact that there are challenges and controversies in terms of school leadership today, about which many people are concerned, and I've had literally hundreds of personal conversations on that subject. But I'm here to say that when it comes to the product of education that's available to the students of New Rochelle, it is outstanding. It's outstanding in terms of the range of classes. It's outstanding in terms of the facilities. It's outstanding in terms of the extracurriculars. It's outstanding in terms of the spirit of the student body, which is positive and respectful and forward-looking. So I would enthusiastically recommend the New Rochelle schools to any parent who's thinking about where to send their kids.
My guest, of course, Mayor Noam Bramson from New Rochelle. He's running for re-election. Mayor, let's cast our eyes forward a bit. Two things. You mentioned earlier, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. You were a speechwriter for Nita Lowey. There are those that think you might one day run for Congress. Your hat's not been mentioned, throwing your hat into the ring, and of course you're running for re-election. Is that something you'd like to do one day?
Well, I think you never say never in public life. I'm certainly not running for Nita Lowey's seat, just to be clear. I don't want to leave any ambiguity about that. As many people know, New Rochelle was removed entirely from that district back in 2012.
Yes.
So even if I were inclined in that direction,
You'd
it would
have
be
to
an
move.
option.
Yeah.
Exactly. This has been my standard answer to questions of this kind since I entered public life. And it is that I don't rule out the possibility of running for higher office, but I have no specific plan to do so. And my focus is doing the best possible job in the position that I have right now and serving the people of New Rochelle to the very best of my abilities.
Excellent segue, because as we look forward, let's take a look 4 years down the road. Let's assume you've been reelected, and where do you see the city 4 years from now, or rather, where would you like to see it?
So I want us to successfully execute the downtown plan and make sure we're doing it in the right way that balances preservation and change and that benefits all of us. I'd like to see us build on our good work with respect to the environment, with enhanced attention to local ecology, improved recycling programs, more sustainable transportation options. I'd like to see us fully implement our 10-year capital plan so that we can continue fixing up our roads and parks, which I think is a huge priority for just about everyone in the city. I'd like to see us build on our great public safety record. Let's advocate for common sense gun safety measures. Let's provide positive support for at-risk youngsters. I mentioned that our municipal finances are in good shape. I think we should always be looking for opportunities, however, to modernize government and deliver the best value for taxpayers. And there are also some specific sort of exciting initiatives. We won the downtown revitalization program. That's a $10 million grant from New York State. We have an opportunity to repurpose Memorial Highway as a linear park. That will be a transformative, positive change in the heart of our city. We won the Bloomberg Philanthropies Grant, one of just 9 cities in the country to do so. We have a chance to develop an open source virtual reality app that will make it easier for anyone in the community to help work with us to visualize changes in public spaces as well as development. So what I hope we will become is a better version of what we are today, a community that is diverse, that is vibrant, that has different characteristics in different parts of town, and that's a place where our children and grandchildren can live and want to live, that encourages creative expression, that exemplifies best planning principles, and that is seen around the region as a model for how communities like ours can succeed. And we are moving in that direction. You know, we've got a lot of work to do still, but our trend lines are more positive today than they have been at any point in my life. And so that is enormously gratifying, and I'm really grateful to all the people who have worked together in partnership to bring us this far, and hope that we can continue moving forward.
Okay, one final question, and you know I've been asking you this and others who run for office now for almost 15 years. You're in the booth, Mayor Bramson, or I'm in the booth, and I have to pull the lever for you or Brendan Conroy. Why do I want to pull it for Noam Bramson?
I'm sorry, so do me a favor, Bob. The city manager just walked in and sort of distracted me for a second. So could you just repeat that
city manager, by the way.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yes, no. By the way, you and he don't brag enough about one thing. Well, the work that has been done on Hudson Park and some of the parks has been extraordinary. Just you guys need to take a bow for that.
Thank you.
But,
and that's and I'd add Lincoln Park and Feeney
Yeah,
Park.
no,
and
I know,
Flowers
but-
Park. We've really made a focus on this, and we're fortunate. We have a good professional staff in New Rochelle, and I'm happy to work in partnership with them.
I walk by Feeney Park just about every day. I drive by the park over on Lincoln. Anyway, okay, here was my question, and I've been asking you this for 15 years, and everyone else who's run for office, from dog catcher to governor. I'm in the booth. Why should I pull the lever for Noam Bramson instead of Brandon Conroy?
I think in this election there are big differences with respect to experience, vision, and values. I've been immersed in civic challenges for most of my adult life. I think the record will show that I've made an enormous positive contribution to where New Rochelle is today. I've articulated a clear vision for how New Rochelle can be an even better community tomorrow. And I've been a consistent champion for the progressive, inclusive values that are at the heart of New Rochelle's identity and must remain present in the years to come.
Mary, I want to thank you very much for your time this morning. Good luck. We'll talk to you again next week, and we will continue to talk to you right up through until we get to Election Day. Good luck to you, sir, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Bob. A real pleasure.
All right, take care. Mayor Noam Bramson, everyone. Coming up in just a few minutes, we will talk with... in fact, he may well be on the line now. We will talk with, if only I can get my computer to do what I want. Oh, I'm getting used to all this new equipment. We'll talk with Ron Belmont. He's the mayor of Harrison. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. We are the station at the station, and today we do start podcasting all of our various shows and segments of the morning show. You can get to us by going on RadioWestchester.com. You can listen live every day, or you can catch us on our podcast at the same place, RadioWestchester.com. You can also listen live or watch us if you prefer on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope. We are available for you. Let's take a look at the weather and then see who's supporting us, and then we'll talk with Ron Belmont. Still 48 now. It's starting to rise again. 48 degrees, perfectly clear skies right now. A few clouds throughout the day, getting up to about 67. Mostly sunny. Mostly cloudy tonight, though. The temperature getting down to 46. Light winds Tuesday, that's tomorrow for the uninitiated. Cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature will level off about 59. Again, light winds. Wednesday, lots of sunshine, breezy. The high will be 62 degrees. And the weather this morning brought to you by our friends at United Hebrew. Also supported this morning by Aging Issues Management, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and the law firm of Pena and Com. We'll talk to Ron Belmont in just a few minutes. And I'm watching, it's just like a science for guys that gamble. Do you know what we forgot to ask you? Come on over here a second again, Jake. Jake Schaefer, there's a lot of things here at the radio station, but he is our go-to gambling and football aficionado. How early in the week do you start studying for your success?
Well, I already quickly looked at the line, and you don't know. There's some players that are still questionable if they're going to play or not. But I'd like to look at the lines, see what they're. A lot of them are off right now because they don't know who's available to play. It's still really early, but I usually like to start around Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, because I wanted to ask you about something that I neglected to earlier, which is gambling. Now, it's legal now, and you can.
New Jersey, you have to physically be in New Jersey.
No, physically be, but there are a lot of online gambling places. When I listen to sports shows, they're always advertising. Is it, other than having your legs broken if you don't pay, is it better to gamble legally, or you've given choices? I don't want to know what you do or offline with let's say Joe 5 fingers on the corner.
Oh no, I'm straight by the book.
Okay, straight by. Oh, yeah, I wasn't asking you that. Now, how popular is it?
Oh, it's very popular. But to do it online, you can't do it online in New York State yet. You have to literally cross the bridge, and you have to be in New Jersey.
So, do you drive over to Fort Lee and put in your bets?
Yeah. Well, my brother lives in Jersey City, so I can just make a call, and he can do that, take care of that for me.
I didn't realize
or you
that.
You can try a Indian casino, an Indian reservation that has casinos. A lot of them do sports books as well.
Like the ones up in Connecticut and upstate New York. Okay.
There's one near Syracuse.
Well, you know everything about. I don't. Wait. Well, look at this hat. Is that a Milwaukee Brewer hat?
It is.
Where does that come from? Where does that? Or did somebody just give you the hat?
Took a lovely vacation there last summer and fell in love with the area.
Wait a minute. Whoa. You went to Milwaukee on vacation. You're an exciting guy.
Yep. It was.
What's next?
It was a stop before.
Podunk.
It was a stop before hitting Wrigley. So.
Oh.
That was pretty exciting.
All right, Wrigley. You've been to Wrigley Field.
I have.
What's it like?
Fantastic. I liked it. I went to 2 summers ago. I tried Fenway for the first time, and then last summer I did Wrigley. So that was.
I miss those old ballparks, and I know they've tried to recreate them. The only problem I have, they do it out the outside. But if you've been to Citi Field, beautiful ballpark.
Went a couple times this summer.
But it's so high. You get a seat upstairs. It's like you flew in.
Yeah.
I have I see no purpose in that. For me, I love baseball, but I love the intricacies. I like the little things. I like to watch the pitcher pitch. Up there, you can barely see who's on the field.
That's true. And I like my flat screen TV, and I don't like getting in the parking spots. Just put me in front of a flat screen TV. I'm fine.
Actually, the best buys are minor league. AA baseball, a lot cheaper. You can sit down closer, get to know the players. All right, so you've already started cooking. Now, how much do people typically bet? How much can you bet online, and how do they set your credit rating?
I like the $10 parlays. So $10,
explain
make
it
4
to us.
picks, and win $200.
4 picks.
Got to hit 4. And right now, I got the Jets going for my 4 for 4 tonight.
Okay, you got that. So all you gotta do is about $10.
$10.
Now you said a parlay. Who else is in the parlay if it's the Jets?
I did the Chiefs for Thursday night. I did the Cardinals, and I did the Packers yesterday. And so I'm 3 for 3 so far. And then tonight I'm going for 4 for 4.
What can you win if you win all 4?
$200.
For that $10? Mm-hmm. How come I'm not doing this? How come you're not giving me that? Well, you did give me the
Give
picks.
you the picks.
I know you give them to me every week because I'm supposed to be the crybaby. It's part of my
And
shtick.
you are going to Vegas, and I said to you, I hope you enjoy my picks.
Well, I don't gamble. I don't even know how to gamble.
All right,
Do you know the only thing I do if I show up at a casino? Well, I am such a nerd and such a killjoy. Because of what I do for a living, I'm always looking for newspapers, anything. And so and do you ever try and buy a newspaper in Atlantic City or Vegas? Even in the gift shops, they don't, or $6 for the daily news. I like my newspapers, and I take one $5 bill.
Yeah, you won't find a newspaper in a casino. You won't find a clock. You'll find a lot of
and you will
AC,
find
a lot
books.
of cold air. They just want you staying awake and gambling.
All right, now, what I do is, you know the wheel where you can say that's 45 to 1? I go to that, and that's right, we have one in here. I should do that. And because
we should put every NFL team, and then we'll just spin it, and I'll put $5 on whoever spins the wheel.
That's a good idea. We should. I don't think we could do it over the air without getting me arrested, but we can do it in here with just you and I. But I go to that
off the train,
and I bet $5. And what? Somebody's on the train. Oh. Well, there's always people on the train.
No, we could pull someone
and
let
I'm
them
saying.
spin.
I was going to say, did you also realize the Earth is round? Have you heard that rumor too? Look, these people are getting on. We're at the train station, Jake. I don't know if we're going to hear from Mr. Belmont. He's usually on time. It's only a couple of minutes late. I don't see no, but that's okay because I want to get to the bottom of this. So what I do is I'll take that 20, and I'll get chips for $20, and I'll play that, and that's it. And every once in a great while I hit. And but other than that, then I go back to my newspapers and my books or a pool or wherever. I'm just not a big gambler. I was up a Mohegan Sun, and I put a couple of bucks in a slot machine, and I won $300. And I said, I'm going to be ahead of the game for the rest of my life. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, because I just doesn't do anything for him. But again, I realize it's look at he's reading the Times editorials while other people are. I ignore the dancing girls. I don't want to look at them. All righty. Let's do a little bit of reset. Coming up, Sean Patterson Howard's going to be with us at 9 o'clock. We're going to open up the telephones. We've done a lot today. And you may have a comment about some of our guests or any of the things we talked about. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141. We'll be right back. All righty, let's look at who's coming up and who's coming up tomorrow. As we look at tomorrow's list, at 7 o'clock tomorrow, we have Mike Edelman. You know Michael from Florida, one of our favorite callers. Anthony likes to call him Triple Bogey. He'll be with us at 7:20. Bob Cox at 7:35. And at 8:20, we will have the publisher of, along with the managing editor of Black Westchester Magazine, in the studio. At 8:50, Ivar Hayden. We'll be talking with him about development. And then we'll talk at 9 o'clock with Professor Jack Breslin. A lot going on in the realm of, I was going to say editorials, but really most papers are editorials, journalism. Now, some of the stories we did today that are still sticking with us, particularly the one about the guy that beat up a cop and walks. It's just extremely troubling. And I'm not sure what to make of the judges. Now, over the years doing radio, and for those of you just tuning in, every once in a while I get asked. Now, Jake, you've never asked me this, but I'm going to answer it anyway. When I went from being a corporate communications guy to a news guy, and then immersed myself, did hard news. There were three things I've learned, and they're troubling. Number one, the number one most troubling thing that I've learned, and I probably shouldn't have been surprised, is it really is who you know in this world. A lot of people get a lot of breaks, whether it's traffic tickets, whether it's seats at a restaurant, or more importantly, access to power, access to jobs, access to money, access to capital. Who you know. It really is still who you know. And the world exists on that. And the world exists, by the way, in ways that are, what's the right way to put it? Reciprocal. I brag about you, you brag about me. We don't even know each other. It may be a lie, but you endorse it anyway. Number two, although it's fast being replaced by three, number two has been my disappointment in district attorneys, that they'd rather win all too often. I'm not saying all of them. They'd rather win than do justice. And my poster child for that has been Janine Pirro. That's why I was so glad. I mean, I've met her offline. She can be a fun, decent, human, smart woman, but she's decided to be the kind of narcissist that builds a career. But I don't like to see you build a career at the expense of other people's freedoms or justice. But the third thing is, and it was a big part of the early part of the show today, I'm so disappointed. Not all of them, and I know I've got some people who listen regularly who get upset when I say this, but if you want to be a judge, be good at it. It's not just a job. It's not just a job you take because it's a municipal job and you don't have to be a practicing lawyer. You should consider it. I think it's more important than a priest or a rabbi. Only thing more important, doctors are more important. The president's more important. Not even senators are as important as judges, because you get to mete out justice. And we were talking today about those people that do walk. And a guy who's both a defense attorney and has been an investigator says, well, the judges see this every day, again and again and again. I don't care if you see it every day, again and again and again. It's like heart surgery. You want to be a judge, and then at 4:30, heaven forbid you call a judge after 4:30. Heaven forbid that a judge gets disturbed at home. I'm always amazed that they have to contact these judges in the middle of the night when they have someone on death row. You know, when you have someone on death row, a judge should be appointed to his precious home-ass time. He should be appointed to sit by the goddamn phone. And I think we praise judges too much. At the same time, we don't hold them accountable. And, oh, my job is so busy and I have such a... You do. I get it. You don't like it? Do something else. Do you think I'm crazy? Well, you may think that. Do you understand my point of view on that?
Well, how often do they actually have their feet held to the fire?
Not often enough.
Yeah.
Not often enough. And particularly in New York City, particularly in other liberal cities, but in conservative cities too. We got people that could want to throw people in jail because they don't like the way they look. We have racist judges. But that's the thing. There ought to be a test for judge, and they ought to be held to the highest standards. And I don't believe they're not. So they're moving up. And it's taken a while. It's taken me all 15 years to realize that, well, I want to be challenged on this. I'm not using the word yet, but I'm close to calling the fraternity of judges a broad mediocrity. Probably a good way, not a good way to end on a negative note. Let me give you a positive note. Tomorrow we have all these other guests coming in, and I do think that Sean Patterson Howard may be missing her. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do that, one more weather report for you, and that's part of what we do here. It's 48 degrees, getting up to 67 today. No chance of rain, mostly sunny skies. The temperature will be 64, leveling off at 64 today. Very sunny skies. Tonight, mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 46 degrees, the wind light. Tuesday, that's tomorrow. Tuesday, cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature will be 59. The wind will be light out of the northwest. Wednesday, lots of sunshine, breezy too. The high will be 62 degrees. And we want to thank our sponsors today. Of course, we have Dominic Segal. Oh, she's calling in.
You want me to call?
Oh, no, that's okay. particularly when they're running for office. We like them to stand on whatever they do or don't do. So anyway, I was saying Wednesday, lots of sunshine, breezy. The high will be 62 degrees. We want to thank United Hebrew. The phone is ringing. We may well have our guest. Good morning. You're on Westchester Radio.
Good morning, Bob. This is Sean.
Oh, it is Sean. Okay, she called in. This we like. See, I thought that you were saying that she was calling in. Jake was just saying, he was pointing to the phone and saying, the phone. And sure enough, there you are. All righty. Let's get to business. But first, I was just resetting. We want to thank the first 3 hours of the show brought to you by United Hebrew, Aging Issues Management. Plug in virtual reality. If you want to do it here, you can call us up at 914-727-2726, and we will share that experience with you. And I don't think Sean Patterson Howard wants us to do that. She's running for mayor, by the way. But we will bring virtual reality to your party, your convention, your bar mitzvah, whatever it is, by calling 914-727-2726. A lot more fun than those photographs inside a window frame. And, of course, the law firm of Pena and Khan. Our 9 o'clock guest, and she is with us now. She is the duly elected, and when I say duly elected candidate, she won the primary to be the next mayor of Mount Vernon. She is running against Andre Wallace. Andre Wallace is the acting mayor now there since the step down of Richard Thomas. He's the acting mayor, and he will run for re-election, or election, actually, for the first time. But he will be running on the Republican line. We've reached out to Mr. Wallace on several occasions in the last week or two. We've been unable to connect with him to get a commitment for an interview. Hopefully we will do that. But without further ado, please welcome once again Sean Patterson Howard. Good morning. How goes it?
It goes well. I can't complain. How are you? How was your weekend?
You would ask me about that. But you're an executive, so you'll appreciate this. I walk in here Saturday night, right? And since you asked, and I'm the guy's got to use all this equipment, and we had all the geeks in here doing upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've been in this studio. Imagine every single computer, microphone, and device unplugged, pushed to the side, and a big pile of black wire in the hundreds of yards, miles of black wire on the floor. I just let out a scream. So they put in all the enhancements we now have. In fact, you'll be getting it, but we've got to do it often. We have a special VIP number so that people can call when people are on the air. We have all kinds of talk back stuff and new video and hello everybody. So that's how my weekend was. You asked.
Well, I'm glad. And the last time when I was there last week, I know they had been doing some upgrades and some things were working and other things were waiting to be installed. So I'm glad that you have all of your bells and whistles, which should make it easier
Ding, ding, ding. Well,
to
no.
produce. But, of course, you had to clean it all up after Saturday when they finished.
Oh, well, they didn't finish Saturday. We finished last night, late.
Okay.
No, but you know what? I say this to you because you're an executive now. Sean Patterson Howard's running for mayor, but she's the CEO of the Yonkers YMCA, and we're going to get to her. We have time in a minute. But as the guy who has to run this shop, it was the classic battle between me and the technology people. You know, they will give you a jet plane even when all you need is a Hyundai if you don't stop them. You know that. You know that. So it was kind of like that, you know. But they gifted beyond belief. But you should see, I even got a little baby mic under my big mic here from when I talk back to you. Jake's looking at me like I'm crazy. All right, let's get down to cases. You have been a busy woman, all kinds of whistle stops, if you will. What's going on with your campaign? What are you focusing on right now, Sean Patterson Howard?
Well, you know, tomorrow will be 2 days away from Election Day, and this Saturday starts early voting.
All right.
And so October 26th through November 3rd is early voting. And so what we've really been focusing on is continuing to reach out to the people. I've had several cottage parties or meet and greets in homes for some people who are supporting me but who have friends who are still undecided. And it's an opportunity for people to kind of meet with me face to face and ask the hard questions. I like directly sitting down with the members or the citizens of Mount Vernon so that I could hear their hopes as well as their frustrations and their fears. A lot of people continue to speak about the high rate of taxes, the inconsistency of city services, how we're going to change that, how we're going to make sure that we're communicating and working with the comptroller and the city council to move the community forward and not stay stuck in political infighting. Quality of life issues. People just want answers.
Sean,
They want answers, and they know that they're going to have a leader that is not only responsible but responsive.
Ms. Patterson-Howard, what are you hearing the most from them, and what has been their reaction to the dysfunction of the past year, the week with 3 mayors, et cetera?
Well, it was interesting. One lady nailed it. She said it was 37 days. 37 days we had multiple mayors, and they, they're very saddened by that. There were, I hear over and over that people were very embarrassed, or even people who were working in New York City said their colleagues and coworkers were talking about all of the political infighting in Mount Vernon. People are happy that right now we have one mayor, and they're looking forward to the November 5th election, so they will know who will be leading the city over the next 4 years.
Now, you mentioned this. I thought of you this morning. I was interviewing Mayor Noam Bramson, who's running for re-election. Of course, he's already served 3+ terms, and he's in the midst of this development, this downtown renaissance, if you will. He's got his critics, as well the job requires. But he talked about how years ago, one of the things that got him into government was that this city here, where our radio station is in New Rochelle, was considered a city that couldn't get out of its way. And I couldn't help but get the sense that that's what you're moving into now.
Right.
And how are you going to approach this if you're elected? And again, people that I speak with say the person that gets a Democratic nomination is the favorite. And I realize you can't assume that. You got to run to first base hard, and Andre Wallace is not taking a back step. But nonetheless, you get the job. What are you going to do to counter that?
Well, it's what I've already started doing. I believe will make the difference. On June 26th, I started reaching out very intentionally to the comptroller, to city council members, not from a place of assuming that I'm going to win the general election, but there's so much that needs to be done that we can't wait until November 6th to start having questions and conversations. And so last week, the Montefiore Mount Vernon issue really came up. And so I reached out to Montefiore, as I was hearing more information about this. And at the same time, I reached out to our council president, Janice Duarte. I reached out to our comptroller. I reached out to legislator Lyndon Williams, who represents us on the county level. I reached out to Congressman Elliot Engel's office.
What did they have to say about this? Because this was on my list of questions once we got into particulars. But let's go there now. The Montefiore, where do you stand on this issue?
Well, look, this is something that has come out that's very new. It's new and it's old. I'll say it's old because
it's 8 years old.
It's old because the hospital has been struggling for years. We've had multiple owners over the past 10 years. Services have been transferred to other facilities. Services have declined. The community's become more and more frustrated and less confident in the services, not because of the physicians, but because services are being removed and other services were being brought in. And so, like many people in Mount Vernon will say, well, I haven't used the hospital in years. And it's not because they dislike the hospital. They're just saying that they did not feel that the hospital had all of the services that they wanted, nor did they feel that the investment was being put into the hospital at the level that they wanted to see, and they felt that they would get better care elsewhere. And so, when that type of dance starts, it's like, we want to see you be better before we come in and use your services. And then the hospital at the same time is saying, well, since you're not using our services, clearly you don't want us in the community. And so that's where the tension is. The community is asking for more, and the hospital is saying, well, we really can't give you more because you're not coming.
How much?
Mount Vernonites are not using the hospital the same way.
How much of it is symbolic? Because when we look at it, now this is just from the outside looking in, it doesn't make me right or wrong. This is just a point of view. If they're going to build, as they say, Montefiore, is that a $44 million acute care facility, but that their hospitals, let's say in the Bronx and here in New Rochelle, for longer term care will work. Why is that a bad option?
Well, look, I'm not sure which city you live in, but if there wasn't a hospital in New Rochelle, I think residents would react.
No, I understand that.
What
but hear me
Monty is
out.
proposing.
No, but hear me out on this. No, I do
Absolutely.
understand that, but these cities are small. Your city, geographically, is 4 square miles. In fact, I've often said on these airwaves that if you took New Rochelle, Pelham, and Mount Vernon, maybe Pelham Manor, throw them in too, you'd have 300,000 people, and you need a couple of hospitals. So the borders are, you're right next to New Rochelle. Where I hang my hat, I can walk 2 blocks to your city or another block to Pelham. They're all close together. So in other words, how much of it is civic pride versus services? And I'm just asking, I'm not concluding. How much of it is that?
I wouldn't say that it's not a combination. I would not say that it's not a combination. It could be a combination of the two.
Yeah.
But this information is just coming out. This information, like most corporations, make their decisions privately with the input of a few, and then it's announced to the community. And so this is just being announced to the community, and the community has a lot of concerns, and they want to be heard, and they want to understand what this looks like. So it's a $41 million facility that they're proposing to build on Sanford Boulevard. It's not acute care. It's an ambulatory care center with some specialty services and a full emergency room. This is what they're looking to build. I think that the biggest concern is for the people who cannot or who do use the hospital, your seniors, your veterans, the poor. They use the hospital a lot, as well as other citizens that don't fall into that category.
Sure.
And for some, going and if they're inpatient, having their family come see them 15 minutes away and they don't really have transportation can be a hardship. And so, you have to sit down and negotiate. You have to bargain. You have to ask the questions. And so that's what we're in the process of doing, wanting to sit down with Monty and ask the questions, wanting to sit down with the community and understanding what it is that the community really wants and needs. And so this is more than something that's political.
I see.
It's a reaction and a response and trying to gain greater insight into what's happening and what they're proposing to do.
Shawn Patterson Howard is our guest. She is the Democratic nominee. She won the primary to be the next mayor in Mount Vernon. She is running against the acting mayor, Andre Wallace, and she's obviously you're very well versed on this issue. Has Montefiore been forthcoming? They haven't always been great at public outreach since they took over from Sound Shore, and we struggle with that all the time with them. Have they been forthcoming?
There's a community advisory board, and I guess they speak to them more so. But Monty said that they have put investment into the hospital. I'm understanding now that I'm getting more information. I'm understanding and hearing that there was supposed to be an expansion and an upgrade of the emergency room as part of monies and a plan that they released before.
I remember that.
Did not happen.
Yeah.
And so I keep hearing that from our police and our fire. So I am, I met with the police and the fire department to speak about this and some other things, and the fire department is absolutely saying, look, we use the hospital. We bring people to the hospital. We need a hospital that's local. There is a difference between going to Sound Shore or Lawrence or going down to Monte Moses, and we need a hospital in this community. Mount Vernon, if we're right, we have about 100,000 people living in Mount Vernon, which makes Mount Vernon the 8th densest city in the country. And to be the 8th densest city in the country without a full-service hospital is of great concern to the community.
Understood.
Having a hospital without beds, is kind of the quote-unquote the air marks that you get in the air. Having a hospital without beds is a new concept, is something that we have not seen, and is something that the community is having a hard time wrapping their head around. And they feel, what I hear when I hear from community members right now, they said Mount Vernon was raped by Sound Shore. They took all the best services and moved them there. By the time Monty got there, Mount Vernon Hospital was, really
depleted,
lame or crippled, depleted, and that services continued to be transferred. But then we as a community gets blamed for not using the hospital. And people feel like we keep losing and that we're being taken for granted as a city and as a community and as residents, and that people are expecting us to use services that the organizations are not investing in. So it becomes like, well, since you don't use us, we're going to punish you and we're going to take away these services. Look, the ambulatory care center, based on my conversations with them, it's going to be a great ambulatory care center. It's going to have a lot of medical specialties. But what it will not have is mental health inpatient beds. What it will not have is medical inpatient beds. So it's an ambulatory care center with specialties. They've talked about the prevention work that they want to do and the community health prevention work, and they'll be able to focus more on that and making sure that people don't get sick. And so I hear the merits of what they're saying, what Monty's saying, absolutely. But the community also still has concerns. And the way it came out, it was like it's a done deal.
Sean Patterson, Howard, I have to say, you've really wrapped your head around this issue in a short period of time. Kudos to you for that. However it works out, I'm sure you'll get the best for your city if you're elected. Wow. Let's move on to some of the other things. Now, this is an issue that came up. And I think you've given people an example of how you would approach it. What are some of the other issues as we move forward that are of much concern to you as would be a hospital for your city?
I mean, other issues that are of great concern for me clearly is our bond rating and the fact that we've lost our bond rating. The Board of Water Supply, the Urban Renewal Agency, the Industrial Development Agency, all three of those organizations are municipal authorities. They're not city departments, meaning that they have oversight by the city council, the mayor, and the comptroller. They're municipal authorities which serve Mount Vernon, but the leadership structure is the mayor sits as the chair of the board and appoints the board of directors for those organizations. Their finances are separately run.
Yeah, who pays the bills?
Well, each of the agencies has their own finance people, but the money comes through the comptroller's office. So for the Urban Renewal Agency, in order to, when we're drawing down money from HUD, that money comes through the comptroller's office to the Urban Renewal Agency, and then it's transferred over to the Urban Renewal Agency accounts, and the Urban Renewal Agency writes their checks, and the treasurer and the president of the board sign off on those checks. So that department does interface with the comptroller. And so
that's
those
interesting.
agencies have not kept up with their audits. The audits have not happened for the Urban Renewal
You
Agency.
mentioned this. You mentioned this to me last time, and you as an executive with what you do and my old background, that one had me banging my head against the wall when we got off the air. How could they not do their audits? When I ran the Chamber of Commerce, if I didn't do my audit at the end of the year, I'm sure I would have been fired. Well,
Right, but the mayor is the chair of the board, and so when I was the Urban Renewal Agency director for about 9 months, I had an opportunity to work on the 2015 audit. We did not have a director of finance in the department, and so we had an external consultant who worked on reconciling the books and helping to close out the books. And then we had the auditor come in, and we worked with the auditor. So it was kind of like a daunting task. I walked into the door, March 17th, but by the time I was leaving, we were 95% through that audit, and it was really prepared to go before the board. From what I understood is that 2 years later, that process had not been finalized. So it was finally finalized, somewhere in 2018. And
are you saying the 2015 audit got finalized in 2018?
I believe so. I don't have the exact date, but I know that it had not been finalized
Let's
for a
you
while.
and I pretend we're at an off-site meeting, and you've attended some as an executive. Didn't heads roll for this? Didn't people get fired? Didn't people get chastised? See, these are the kinds of things I'm sure that people are hoping you will fix.
It would have come from the mayor's office. The mayor is the chairman of the board. He oversees that organization. And I don't know because I was gone by then.
No, I'm just saying in general.
What his posture was.
But when you're sitting in that chair is what we care about now.
Absolutely.
And
I would expect for my director of the Urban Renewal Agency and for the IDA and for the Board of Water Supply to complete their audits. I don't understand how all three agencies, which fall under municipal authority standing, did not complete their audits.
Now, Sean,
and because they did not complete their audits, and maybe some of the reason they didn't complete the audits is because money was being moved in different places.
Well, yes,
we found out later on.
We had. Now, I know we're all tired of looking back at these things, but I did have the mayor on and frequently asked him about that, and his answer was that the controller's office or whomever, I don't want to be quoted on that one, would not approve the money for it to do the audits. And whether it's true or not, if that's the case, you're the mayor. If you didn't get the money approved for that, what would you do?
The IDA has their own money. The Board of Water Supply and the Urban Renewal Agency have their own money. They have their own money. And they have their own staff.
Why would they not do their audit? It's really raising. Well, the question is, let me rephrase the question, Your Honor. What will you do if they don't do their audits?
Well, you're going to have to hold the staff accountable and hold the leadership of those agencies accountable. They would have to be terminated. You would have to get new leadership in there.
Good.
That's just plain and simple. Because those audits were not done, the city's audits cannot be done. Because the city's audit is connected to the three municipal authorities' audits.
Right. Because I can
tell you.
tell
The city cannot complete their audits. And we now hear, the books are closed. The books are closed on Urban Renewal Agency. I went back and I followed up. They said, no, the books aren't closed. We've done some reconciliation of the books. But books can't be fully closed until you have audits.
See,
you can close out a year.
Right.
At the YMCA. I can sit there and say I've closed out the books on, let's say, 2018.
What does that even mean? If I may, in your supporting you in this, I don't like to throw myself into this, but I ran one of the biggest reconciling units in the biggest brokerage firm in the world. There's no such thing as closed books if I want to look back for errors or defalcations or plugs or any of it. See, I put myself in this job as if I were a citizen of Mount Vernon. If I was, I'd be jumping up and down about this. And I think people want to hear you say, this is just me, and your reaction to this, please, that you'd fire whomever is in charge. You'd do it yesterday. They'd be gone. No audit, you're
Absolutely.
out. Good. Because this is
Absolutely. I
insane.
mean, we have to be audit ready. At the YMCA, we're
Yeah.
audit ready.
Good.
We close our books at the end of the year. Well, we finished putting transactions in for a year on December 31st. By the middle of January, we're just making sure our numbers in alignment. We wait to get our bank statements, and we reconcile our numbers, and we make sure that we're audit ready for our auditors to come in by February or March.
'Cause
because the audit has to be done by June.
Something I've heard
we've
before.
been on time with our audits.
Good for you, because something I've heard before, and this is to be fair to the former mayor. When Richard Thomas was running for office, he ran on the virtue of transparency and knowing the numbers and doing audits. Now, we don't know what went wrong. I wouldn't know sitting where I sit. But this is my gut. You're going to have to be one tough woman, one tough mayor to straighten this out. And then there's this, and if you may not know enough about this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. To sit where we sit in the news, a lot of questions have been raised about the Urban Renewal Agency going all the way back to even Ernie Davis's administration and how money was used and spent and loaned and everything else. The reputation is not good. What can we do? What can you do as mayor to fix that?
We have to follow generally acceptable accounting principles.
There you go.
Period. They're called GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And if you're not following GAAP principles, then most likely there is some fraud, waste, and abuse. I have in my possession documents that show loans that were giving out since 1999
Yeah.
through the Urban Renewal
Yep.
Agency that were not paid back. And unfortunately, as I sat in there, I connected with our attorney and compliance officer. We went through this laundry list of loans that had been given out over the years. We looked at them, and we went back to look at paperwork. And the legal paperwork had not been filed with the county, like the loan closure documents, so that we could even go out and put liens on these people's properties.
You mean we don't even know who we
These
loaned
are-
the money to?
We know who we loaned the money to, but we don't have the paperwork filed with the county to go out and take a lien on their property.
But can't we? Yeah, again, I'm playing executive here. It'll be your job if you're elected. But there must be some means to bring them to court and at least get a deposition from them. They must have paperwork.
Well, by the time we were able to get to that point, we were walked out of City Hall. And I think some of the ruckus that we started around it made a few people nervous. They made phone calls, and that was part of it.
Thank you.
There were some loans that were given out for $300,000 and not paid back, but yet years later, you loan some of those same people even greater amounts.
Yeah, we've always gotten that sense
So the
here.
there's rehabilitation monies that are given to the Urban Renewal Agency, and these monies are to help affordable housing stock be maintained properly.
Do you know what?
And so
I hear. You know what we used to do on Wall Street when we came across this? And you did in Wall Street. We had managers who were bad actors, people who mismanaged accounts, and even people who were guilty of fraud. I once got a job and had to take the FBI locks off the door. You take all the old accounts and you put them into a recovery mode and and you redo them, and then you just start fresh. But that's an accounting thing for another day. This is very interesting stuff. Sean Patterson Howard, digging, as you can see, into the Urban Renewal Agency. That will be a good thing. You'll get slings and arrows, but good for you. What else? Now, you've talked about the audits. We've talked about the hospital. What else is big in your list of things to do?
the infrastructure of our city is crumbling and has been crumbling for years. And when I'm speaking about infrastructure, I'm speaking about our roads, our sewers. Our community is not properly lit. We have too many dark spaces. Additionally, our city-owned properties like the Dole Center, the Armory, the City Court, and our firehouses are in very bad condition.
Mm-hmm.
Our first responders are without the proper equipment, and they're without the proper communication systems there are dead spots within our communication systems. The communication system is very old. And if we have firefighters running into a fire and they cannot hear the commands
Like
maybe
9/11?
coming from
Yeah.
the dispatches outside of the building, then they don't know, okay, do I need to go up another floor? Do I have to pull out because the fire is raging out of control? So we have to make sure that we have the proper communication systems in place for our fire and our police officers who are responding to emergencies and putting their life on the line in different ways. We have to make sure, that our fire trucks are in good condition, or that we have the proper fire trucks, new fire trucks. We have to make sure that the fleet of our police cars are in good condition. There are a lot of police cars that, are almost being held together by duct tape. And we did get a few cars and used cars from other communities.
Sean Patterson.
But
Sean, I'm sorry, I've got to say this. Are you sure you want this job?
look, it's a lot.
Wow.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. But what we see right now has been a lack of planning, a lack of coming together to really develop comprehensive strategies to address our infrastructure. We respond to crises, and we've operated in a crisis
A little
mode
aside,
in Mount Vernon.
I thought of something. I was driving last night, or was it the night before? I don't remember the days anymore. I was driving up the Cross County, and there were this string of lights, and I think it was in the Mount Vernon stretch, but I would think they were county.
That are out.
Is that because what you're talking? Because they were out. I'm saying, why are these lights out? And then when I get to New Rochelle, they're back on. Is that part of what you're talking?
Exactly.
My goodness.
Well, I mean, that happens on our highway, and that's something we have to ask about, because those are not our lights. Those are county lights.
Well, they should get their
but-
butts in order and fix them. I had Latimer on today. I would have asked them. I didn't know they were county lights. But there you go.
But we've experienced that. But, there are also a lot of our neighborhoods, residential, commercial, and mixed use, that are just not well lit. We understand that there was some lighting upgrades that were done a few years ago, but there are still too many dark passageways and blocks in our community. And so you can have your home light and lights from your home shine when you're going out and you're getting something out of your driveway. But if you have to walk a dog in the evening, if you work a second shift and you're coming home after your second shift and walking from the bus or the train, as oftentimes my daughter does, and plenty of other people that I know, the community is just not well lit, and people don't feel safe. I mean, when the community is dark, that just provides an opportunity for criminal activity.
Absolutely. And, some of us even get in before 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll have you know, 4:30.
Right.
Sean Patterson, how we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back, and we'll look forward as to how the rest of your campaign is looking and see what else you want to get done. Sean Patterson Howard, she's the Democratic nominee for mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. She has lots of plans. We'll hear more when we return. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone on Radio Westchester. We'll be right back with the weather, some acknowledgments, and then return with Sean Patterson Howard. As we move into the bottom of the hour, let's take a quick look at who will be with us tomorrow. Mike Edelman, political analyst. Bob Cox, the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound. Damon Jones will be with us, along with A.J. Woodson from Black Westchester Magazine at 8:20. At 8:50, we'll have Ivar Hayden, and then we'll talk with Professor Jack Breslin. Right now it is 52. The temperature is rising. The sky is clear. It'll get up to about 67 or 68 today. Tonight, still clear skies. We'll have get down though to about 46. Nice sleeping weather. Today's program is supported by United Hebrew Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. I'm Bob Marrone, and we return now to our conversation with Sean Patterson Howard, right here on Radio Westchester. We are the station at the station, broadcasting live. And we also will have most of this repodcasted for you as we move forward in the days and weeks ahead. All of our shows will be podcasted, as well as individual podcasts and shows that are upcoming. You can listen live on RadioWestchester.com, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope. Let us return now to our conversation with Sean Patterson Howard. Thank you for staying with us. We're setting them up and you're knocking them down. You've talked about infrastructure now. After that, what else is of concern to you?
Well, I mean, clearly economic development is very important for the city of Mount Vernon. Our homeowners are bearing an unsustainable load of the costs for the city.
Mm-hmm.
Over 80% of the revenues in the city of Mount Vernon are are homeowner-based taxes. We have to build up our retail and our commercial. We have to find different revenues to come into Mount Vernon, not just taxing the homeowners. And so I had a wonderful opportunity this past Wednesday to sit down with our Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul.
Mm-hmm.
She came down to Mount Vernon, and we had lunch at one of our local diners, and we really spoke about economic development. First of all, we spoke about the need for a comprehensive plan in Mount Vernon. We haven't had our comprehensive plan in Mount Vernon completed, ratified, voted on, and instituted since 1968. And, all of the other communities around us have 1968, 51 years.
Older than me? No, it's not older than me. Continue.
Well, it's my age.
No, we don't. Look, I am still alive because I never ask women their ages, and it's the one sexist thing I do that I know is appreciated. So it's.
Oh, I don't mind.
Well, I didn't know you were that age, so
yeah.
I already forgot it. Sean Patterson Howard.
Okay.
But now you
Okay.
mentioned meetings with Ms. Hochul. Now you've got the support of the Democratic Party. Do you feel you'll be able to get the help of the county, George Latimer, the governor? You've got people who are in of course, the city council, but the county legislator, assembly people, state senators.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that you can get their support in what you're setting out to do?
Absolutely. These are the conversations, like I said, that I've been having. On June 26th, the conversations elevated to another level.
Mm-hmm.
Having officially won the Democratic primary, then there was great opportunity for me to move forward and speak to different elected officials throughout the city, county, and state, and start having those conversations with them about what our Mount Vernon's needs.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was having those conversations, I needed to get more information, and that's why I started going by the firehouses and meeting with them and taking tours of the firehouses so that I understood their needs, because I didn't have access to that information through City Hall. When people are still in a competitive mode with you, you don't get access to that information. And so I went straight to the police department, the fire department. I met with CSEA. I met with our Teamsters. So I brought all four of our unions that serve the city of Mount Vernon together. I said, I'm not going to meet with you separately because I don't want anyone to think that I'm promising something to one that I'm not to another. I want to understand, what are your equipment needs? What are the safety issues that you're having within your departments? What are the training needs? Because who else sometimes to get the best information from but the people who do the work from day to day?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had those meetings, and I was able to take the information. People gave me an inventory of some of their equipment and how they rated it as poor, fair, good, and most of it was listed as in poor condition, and some things, of course, were out of commission. And I was able to take that information and have conversations with our county executive and our deputy county executive and some of their chief leadership in the county, and have the same conversations with our assembly person, with our senators, and with the governor's office and some of his regional staff, as well as our now lieutenant governor. And that was very important, because the only way that I can let people know what we need as a city is if I get the information. I've been able to meet with our controller, and I spoke to her several times Friday and Saturday just to kind of get better understanding and ideas of where we stand on a few issues. So meeting with our regional electeds, and those are electeds for Mount Vernon, but what I've also done is I went up and I met our mayor, Andre Rainey, in Peekskill, just to find out what are some of the best practices they have, what are some things that are really going well, what could we glean from what's happening in Peekskill. They just won the $10 million Downtown Rehabilitation Initiative.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you
grant.
about that, if I may. You've mentioned a lot of things.
And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I also met with Mayor Spano, Mayor Noam Bramson, as well as Mayor Roach, Tom Roach. So I met with some of the mayors of the surrounding community, sometimes individually and at other times collectively, just to really get an understanding of some of the issues that they're having and challenges that they've had or they're having or they're solving in their communities, and what could I glean.
Some of their successes. One of the things that I thought of, again, when I had Noam Bramson on this morning, and now you mentioned the mayor of Peekskill, here in New Rochelle, for example, and I realize they have the good fortune of that robust development now in downtown, but they got a grant, the same $10 million grant that Peekskill got for the Lincoln Corridor, Lincoln Avenue Corridor. They got the Bloomberg Award. Those are some ways, but how can you finance your infrastructure? Of course, you have the tax base, but are there grants, are there federal and or state or county programs that you can tax, if you will, that you can ask for help from?
Yes, so, Mario, who is the kind of capital grants writer from Yonkers,
Yes.
I had an opportunity to sit down and speak with Mario and find out, what did you tap into? What did you look at? What was the process? And we'll have more conversations. There's no need for us in here in Mount Vernon to reinvent the wheel or spin our wheels trying to figure out where do we go. And that's why people say, oh, you keep saying you're having discussions. Yes, because I'm looking for solutions. And I'm looking to people who have done some of these things. Just as if you are a newlywed, you reach out to people who have been married for a while and you ask them how they've gotten through marriage and the ups and downs. If you're a new parent, you speak to other people who have been parents and have gone through the vicissitudes of raising their children. And so, as someone who is working towards becoming an incoming mayor, I wanted to speak to other mayors around us, because when Spano came in Yonkers, there was a lot of challenges, especially they had financial issues and their bond rating had been decreased and they were looking at oversight from the state. And so, these are some of the things I spoke to him about. New Rochelle, yes, I grew up just a few minutes from New Rochelle. And I remember when they had a thriving Main Street with all of the movie theaters, with the Macy's, and I remembered when all of those things closed. And for years, New Rochelle became a ghost town, but now they are thriving again, and they're one of our regional powerhouses. I remember when White Plains was much quieter on Mamaroneck Avenue and different parts of downtown, and now it's bustling. And so, of course, and with Peekskill was kind of just our northern partner that had some nice waterfront, but again, still very, very quiet. And so being able to sit with these leaders and hear what they've done, how they're dealing with their homeless issue, how they're dealing with affordable housing and luxury housing and bringing new revenues into their community. And New Rochelle, as we speak to developers, everyone points to New Rochelle. New Rochelle has a great system. They're very user-friendly. They're very clear about what their rules and their regulations are, and we would love to see Mount Vernon adopt some of those things. So that's what I'm looking at the best
You
practices.
are bringing me to our next segue and our next line of questioning, if you will, before we get into a wrap-up. You've mentioned a number of things, and your pedigree as an executive comes through. And one of the things that seems to me is going to be important, let's take a look at, for example, the development here in New Rochelle. They hired a development commissioner who has done more in 3 to 4 years, 5 years, I guess he's here, than the rest did in the last 25. Of course, the conditions were ripe for it. Everything you say speaks to you're going to need a good finance person, even if it's your own. And if the controller plays ball, fine. I'm still not convinced of that, and you forgive me for that. But nonetheless, you'll fix that one way or another. You're going to need a good planning group. You're going to need good finance people. You're going to need a good development commissioner. Hiring is going to be important. How are you going to go about that?
I mean, the way we're going about that is, right now we're just kind of looking around for some talent, as well as we're going to open up a portal for people to send us resumes, and we're asking people in these different industries. Clearly, we're going to look and see what talent we have here in Mount Vernon.
Of course.
Of people who might be interested in taking this position and who we can tap for certain positions. But at the same time, if we cannot find what we need here in Mount Vernon, then I'm absolutely willing to look in our surrounding communities in the region to find someone who is going to be best suited to lead different departments. Clearly we want Mount Vernon talent, but I've said this before, I've met some incredibly brilliant people who live in Mount Vernon and who work in New York City or Connecticut or New Jersey or other places in Westchester County. I've asked some of them, are you interested in coming to work in Mount Vernon? And not all of them are interested in coming to work in Mount Vernon. Not everyone wants to work where they live. Or they're very happy in their careers and their career trajectory,
You
but
never
they're
know.
willing to. Yeah, you never know. I mean, I was a person who left what I was doing to come back to Mount Vernon. So we're not closing those conversations, but we are trying to, test and see what people would be willing to come back into their community and work for the city of Mount Vernon. And secondly, we're just asking people who are in the different industries for names and for referrals so that we can start reaching out to people. But, clearly on November 6th, all of this is going to be ramped up in a very formal way.
Of course.
Because we will only have, 7 weeks, 8 weeks to really to transition
Well,
and
what
prepare
we're trying
for
to
January
do here,
1st.
what we're trying to do here is give people an idea of what they be buying if they vote for you, and you're making it pretty clear. Apropos of this conversation, the development commissioner here, I think they plucked him out of Sullivan County. He was late of New York, and it really worked. So good luck with that. One last thing before I ask you to wrap and tell us why we should vote for you. What haven't we asked that you want people to know? Well, then we covered our
I guess
bases.
it's also just speaking about the people
Yes.
of Mount Vernon. And I think the people of Mount Vernon, we talk about the trains being great assets and our location being great assets, but I think the people of Mount Vernon are some of our greatest assets here in the community. And regardless of neighborhood, socioeconomic background, religious practices, Mount Vernon's people are very good people. They're strong, they're resilient, and they've just been frustrated for a long time. And running in this campaign has given me an opportunity and has caused me to push past, some of the circles that I moved and operated into and try and get to know people everywhere. I've always been a friendly person and a sociable person, but now I'm being very intentional about reaching out and make sure that I reach as many people and hear as many voices and different thoughts as possible. And people in Mount Vernon want what's best for our community, and they've stuck by us for a long time, and they're willing to stick by Mount Vernon. They just want change. And so we want to make sure, like I said before, have it through mayoral advisory boards, that we're tapping into the sheer brilliance, genius, and passion of our residents and giving them an opportunity to come to the table with ideas and help to shape policy and programs and strategic a strategic plan for different areas that we need to strengthen. Our youth and our seniors, we want to make sure that we are working with the school system and working with our community to ensure that our young people have strong services. This is their foundation, and if we do not properly develop them in their foundational years, then we'll have challenges for years to come. Our young people deserve us to work together, the school system, the city of Mount Vernon, the business community, the faith leaders, neighborhood associations, to ensure that there's a safety net in our community for our children and that we're all concerned about their education and their social and emotional development as well as their career development. And our seniors who have worked for so many years and sown into our community, we have to make sure that as they retire and they need us as a community, that we're there. We can build buildings, we can bring in shops, we can expand our revenue, but if we forget why we're doing it, and that's for the residents, for the people, to ensure a strong, unified, thriving, and healthy community, then all of this has been for naught.
Okay, well, we've got one last question, and we always finish with this. We'll take Jake Schaefer sitting over here looking for his gambling picks. He's in the booth. He has a choice. He can vote Republican or for Andre Wallace. He can vote Democrat or for Sean Patterson Howard. Why should he pull the lever for you?
I think people are looking for a political outsider, someone who has not been part of the dysfunction. I've not been part of that dysfunction. I am a person who, as an executive, has always been solution-oriented. I have the ability to build consensus and build coalitions, and that's what we need. One leader cannot turn around Mount Vernon, so you have to know how to play in the sandbox with others and invite people to the table. That has been the center of my career for 30 years, is being able to bring people with different opinions and backgrounds and agendas to the table and to build consensus that helps us to solve problems and move services to the next level. I'm a fiscal manager. I've had to manage budgets that were under-resourced for organizations that were struggling and crumbling and failing, and clearly Mount Vernon is under-resourced. And, just my very education in political administration and urban development also helps to qualify me to do this work, because I've worked in government, I've worked in the public sector my entire life. And so government and public sector are always underfunded. I know how to operate in that environment, and that causes me to really reach out for partnerships. I am a person of integrity. I am a strategic thinker. I'm very thoughtful and intentional in my actions and how I work with people. I love my community. And I would be honored to serve at the highest level as mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. This is not about elected office. It's about public service. And I'm there not only to lead, but to serve the residents of Mount Vernon and work with all of the stakeholders to transform our community, bring back pride, and bring economic development so that we could have a community that we're proud of, where we live, work, play, shop, and that we worship even in the community. Mount Vernon is known as a city with many, many churches, mosques, and temples. And we just need to bring all of those things together.
Sean Patterson,
I believe I'm the right one.
Sean Patterson Howard, I want to thank you for taking this time. We're going to talk to you again next week. And as you can see, we will give voice to your city. If you are elected, we will give voice to you as mayor and help you get the word out. That's what we plan to do here on Radio Westchester. I want to thank you very much. Continued good luck in your campaign, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take
Enjoy
care.
Your week.
We'll be right back with tomorrow's lineup and some information. right, let's take a last look at the weather, and then we have another story that just broke that we want to share with you. In fact, we'll get to that story first before we say good day. This out of Lohud, and this is, let me see, I hit the wrong button. What else is new, Robert? Here we go. This is 7 months after Greenberg voters rejected the largest school bond proposal in Westchester County history. The school district there, that is Greenberg's, building problems are mounting fast. Friday was the deadline for the staff to move out of the Warburg mansion, which served as the district's administrative offices, after an architect reported in August indicated that parts of the building were unsafe. Michael Falcone, the district's director of facilities and operations, said the mansion needs a new roof, new siding, and exterior work. So they shot down the bond, and now they're paying for it. You know, it's that old adage: pay me now or pay me later. And that pretty much slams the lid on things for today. I'm Bob Marrone. You've been listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone here on Radio Westchester. Coming up tomorrow, Mike Edelman, Bob Cox, not Mike Duffy. I'm reading A.J. Woodson and Damon Jones. A.J. is the editor-in-chief of Black Westchester Magazine. Damon's the publisher. Damon Jones has been publishing some editorials. We'll get his take on what's going on. He has a different twist on the hospitals and the issue there regarding the proposed Trauma Center. We look forward to talking with him. Ivar Hayden from District 4 here in New Rochelle, and we will be talking with Professor Jack Breslin, Mass Communications and Ethics. Much to talk about with him, particularly over what's going on in the reporting coming out of Turkey and the Kurdish, the ethnic group, the Kurds, and of course, Syria, Russia, the president, and so forth. This morning's show is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Also, Aging Issues Management. We will be recording our first show with them this week, by the way. You won't want to miss that. We'll go live when we do it and then post it on our podcast. The law firm of Payne & Kahn. And plug in virtual reality. If you'd like to experience what virtual reality is like, call us at 914-727-2726, 914-727-2726. Or if you'd like us to take virtual reality out to you, we will take our equipment for your party, your bar mitzvah, your birthday, your wedding, whatever it is. Call us at 914-727-2726. One last look at the weather. It's 52 degrees, getting up to 67 today. It'll be a beautiful day. The skies are already clear. We cannot see, at least from where we sit in the heart of the station. At the station, we do not see one cloud. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow. It is 10 o'clock. This is Radio Westchester. You can find all our shows and our live shows on RadioWestchester.com. And when we're live, and actually you can still find some of that recorded on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope. This is Radio Westchester. I'm Bob Marrone. We'll see you tomorrow.